Good evening, everyone. So good evening and welcome. Thank you for attending the regular council meeting of Monday, May 1st of 2023, in person and online. I'd like to thank as well l'équipe de CSUR who is here recording and making sure that the sound is impeccable again this evening. Donc merci beaucoup Chantal et Stéphane. Okay. All right, with regards to my report for the month, I would like to underscore that Ian Delgarno did an amazing job directing and coordinating the departments during Martin's absence, and we've also determined that Martin's no longer allowed to leave the country for extended periods of time, particularly around holidays. So that includes Easter, Christmas. We were trying to figure out when the next one would be, so no Mother's Day out of town for you, all right? All this to say that Ian did an amazing job, particularly during this period of crisis that we lived in April with regards to the ice storm, where cell and phone communications were down and power outages were significant. And our dependency on fuel availability was also made clear. So thank you, Ian, for so gracefully and competently taking on the tasks of our Director General during that 2-week period. Martin Audenard and us are starting our ninth month together. C'est une grosse grossesse. Hein? C'est comme produire un enfant. On produit un autre enfant à côté de vous en même temps. So as you may remember, in December last year, Martin's mandate was extended by 4 months, so to the end of April, so April 30th. So you will see in the resolutions this evening another extension. With regards to our search for a permanent Director General, so through the determined persistence of Martin and the headhunter since September of 2022, I was presented with 2 candidates and obviously other CVs of people that we didn't necessarily meet. So one candidate has come out ahead through the interview and psychometric evaluation process, showing a sound fit for Hudson's present situation and orientations. Martin presented Council and me with a sound transition plan for the best transfer of responsibilities and files. And also the HR committee, followed by the Council as a whole, met this candidate last week on April 24th. This evening, we have a resolution to present for adoption to receive this new person amongst us. She will begin the last Monday of the month of May. We're already in May, so in 4 weeks approximately. This person has experience in directing the regional park of the MRC of Beauharnois-Salaberry, where she headed a department with 15 employees and a plan triennal d'immobilisation, so an investment plan, capital investment plan over 3 years of approximately 5 million with a budget of 1.3 million for operating costs. She's also been part of implementing a strategic plan, asset management plan, and infrastructure projects during her term there. From 2018 to 2022, she was responsible for the development of relations in Notre-Dame d'Île-Pérou, where she had an annual operating budget. She was responsible for that for 300,000. In 2016 to 2018, she was the Director General of Archeo Québec, with, again, an operating budget in approximately the same range with approximately 4 employees. So this was really for the deployment and communication of the potential of archaeology in Quebec. So that's an interesting fit for us as well. In 2013 to 2016, she was Director General of Tourisme Suroît in Salaberry de Valleyfield with an operating budget of 750,000 and approximately 15 employees. Between 2010 and 2013, she was a counselor in touristic development here in Vaudreuil-Soulanges, so she's never been very far, always sort of circulating in this region. And between 2005 and 2006, she was also the Director General of the Historic Park of Pointe du Moulin in Notre-Dame d'Île-Pérou. She is presently taking classes at l'École nationale d'administration publique in public administration, more specifically in management. So her name is Marie Marie-Jacinthe Roberge. And I was lucky enough to see her in action as she was on the board of directors for le Conseil des Arts et de la Culture de Vaudreuil-Soulanges, and I saw her ability to handle, I would say, some interesting characters on some very complex topics, and she addressed the situation with a lot of tact, and I think she brings a lot of energy, a lot of will. Even though she's never been Director General of a town, our plan is to provide her with the assistance and the mentoring of Martin Houd for the period of transition. Now, moving on to, since the last council meeting, I have a long list here. Essentially, I'm trying to place some order here. There was obviously a TPAC meeting. There have been council working meetings which take place on Monday evenings. Some of the topics that came up during these working meetings were the situation of flower sales with regards to scouts in the area and how to best frame that. I also spoke on April 11th with Denis Saint-Jean, who is a strategic how would you say, coordinator and consultant with regards to a possible mandate for him to accompany us in developing that question on bilingual towns and how to sensitize the provincial government in addressing the real fears and concerns that the Anglophone community have with regards to Bill 96. So he has submitted a service proposal, which at this time we're all very busy, so we'll probably take a closer look to it in the quieter months of the summer, so in June, July, and bring that forward. But it seems reasonable. It would be a bank of hours, and he has an interesting proposal coming forth, and it would be nice to involve members of the community in that process as well. During our April 11th working meeting, we received the presentation of the fire department's annual report by the director, Daniel Leblanc. We also we discussed, of course, this, the proposal or the potential of going with this consultant for the bilingual town, with the consultant for bilingual towns. We will have more conversations on this, of course. We also received a request for an extension to submit the report on pesticides by Como Golf Course, which we did not support the request for an extension. We also discussed what types of lots we would be looking to register the right for first refusal, so that's le droit de préemption. So far, places like churches, of course, would be, I think, a good choice, but also the Manoir Cavagnal, which has always been a place for affordable housing for the community, where there's about 88 units. So that would be important to keep a certain first right of refusal to make sure that it doesn't land in the hands of the private domain and look to redevelop with a certain loss of that affordability. We also discussed branch collection, which you know begun. So the first set begun. And also, at the end of June, I believe, Melissa Legault will be going away on maternity leave for 15 months, and we will be having Mrs. McKercher, who worked with the town in the past, at the last time that you were also producing another lovely human being. So it's with excitement that we receive Madame McKercher, but we will also be sad to see you go. But I'm glad it's for all the right reasons, and look forward to when you come back, of course. And also this evening, we will be, you've seen in the resolutions or on the agenda, we will be reviewing for the second time the demolition request for 498 Main. And also our Director of Culture began on the Tuesday following Easter, so she's been in place since April 12th and has done already a fabulous job and really taken into control and into hand a lot of the files that I had sort of been handling and Laura had been handling and Martin had been handling as well. So it is very nice to have her sense of organization and can-do and ability. So that's been a great acquisition in that sense. Also, the Hudson Film Festival took place last month, and the festival, the headline feature film that evening was opened by Joseph Diom, who's an elder from the Mohawk community in Ganawaki. So as our invited, or as our, comme notre invité, so our invited person. And it was delightful to hear him speak, setting the mind with regards to our relations to nature and family, and our relations with our friends as well. So I think that's something I'd like to bring further into my own practice, not necessarily every month, but to be considerate of elements that go beyond our table. Also, last month, there was a public conversation, so last Tuesday, the first one, I hope, of a series on how to develop differently. This was an exchange with Luc Maurice, the founding person behind Le Groupe Maurice. I worked for a firm where Luc Maurice was our prime client. I worked solely on Luc Maurice projects from 2005 to 2007, and then returned to that firm where I was handed again his portfolio and worked again for him from maybe 2012 or 13 to about 2015. So I saw the evolution of his projects, the scale of his projects, but I also learned a lot from his approach to handling complex files, but also negotiating and setting up relations again with the community, with his own clients, with his service providers, so professionals, but always looking to, out of, I think, passion for the type of project that he generates, where it's really about the care of the elder and providing a place of quality, so quality of life. He always is very conscious of how that evolves in respect of what the neighborhood wants, what the towns want, and then works to have his project answer to the needs of where the project is sited. So he's offered to continue to be a mentor through the process, to be available to even people who were in the room who might be looking to develop, or people who might be looking for ways to develop acceptability around a project. And interestingly, the room was full. It was nice to see. Naomi was there. I see that she's sitting in front of me with her beautiful pink t-shirt this evening. And all this to say that the room, there was a good mixture, I believe, of developers, of people who care for the environment, people who are curious about what new projects might be coming on, how we will be looking to develop differently, and to be listening, observing the process, but also participating in the process. There were 3 developers in that room who were brave and came. 2 of them spoke to the microphone in, I think, a very constructive manner. I received an email the following day from 2 of the developers wanting to actively work with us in the next public conversation on this topic. And this morning I met with Philippe Robert. We had coffee at Miko, surrounded full people, where he said, you know, I'm genuinely interested in seeing how we can evolve on phase 2 of Willowbrook and work in collaboration with the town and the neighborhood. So that, for me, I spoke to Martin about this earlier, I think there will be really interesting exchange to come, and I continue to encourage the developers to come and present their sketch, so the schematic intention, as soon as possible to the public, to hear feedback and understand what we hear, what we handle, what we deal with through emails, phone calls, people's concerns. So it's not just objections of council or TPAC, but it is really us receiving an awful lot of your comments. So thank you for your active participation. Please continue to do so. And I will be better at promoting these events in the future so that more of you can learn of them. I have a few notes that I will transcribe and put as a follow-up to the post I put on Facebook, and share where that is headed. I have launched a couple of invitations more to now the heritage sector to try and have them explain how we can repurpose buildings and develop at the same time. So it's really trying to turn that focus. If we want to preserve more environment, we know we can't purchase all the land, but we could develop and redevelop differently in order to achieve that goal. With regards to, I'm going to skip a few pages. Public communications, Flood Watch, as you know and may have seen on not necessarily just Facebook, but on our website, we've received daily updates from our directors, and also at the MRC level, they've been, especially in the week before last weekend, we were receiving daily video updates as well, where all mayors that are affected and director generals who are affected were called to hear directly from the consultant hydrologist that works for the MRC on how they determine pre-visibility in terms of the flood watch levels. So Martin's team and Martin know from 2017 and 2019 where the critical spots and where the levels are, but our mapping at the regional level is also extraordinary, where knowing the pre-visibility of the levels, we can turn on layers and see the gradual increase of the water levels and see exactly which properties will be affected. Granted that since those two floods, some houses have been raised, and we are aware of them because there aren't that many. So presently, I believe on the table, it is mostly Rousseau Street that has been flooded as it is in high water periods. And so 24 of their houses, and maybe in other areas, it's not all Rousseau houses, there's not 24 there, but 24 houses are affected by floods. One house has been flooded, and one street has been flooded, so that is Rousseau again. So we're on the watch. Water levels, of course, rose with the rain as expected, but that will cap, and there's still quite a bit of reservoir capacity. So it's looking as though it won't get much worse. We have been sandbagging, so preparing sandbags, making them available to the residents. And that has worked well. I think last time we had an update, there had been 4 residents who had come a few times to come and get sandbags. I don't know if the number has increased, but all this to say that depending on what the water levels will be tomorrow and the need, we will go back into production for more. And also tomorrow morning, starting at 7:30, if I've understood correctly, the Director General and Director, or at least the Fire Department, will be going to the houses of the next sort of layer of risk and informing them, reminding them to be safe with electricity, to tie down their barbecues, anything that can float away, and to protect their homes as much as possible from debris, because debris obviously does a lot of damage to the houses. Ça fait le tour? Oui? Non?
Jeudi prochain va être la journée probablement la plus haute. Après ça, on devrait observer la décrue. Fait qu'il ne faut pas se surprendre cette semaine qu'il y ait un 7-8 cm par jour.
So as Martin just explained, Thursday is expected to be our highest level, and then we'll start to lower again. So as you may remember, there's always 2 peaks. So we've passed the first, and this should be the second. Usually, la période de décrue, so the period where the water levels start to drop, is the first week of May. So historically, that's what we've seen, and that's what we're expecting.
Yeah.
Ça va? Advisory committees, we will go through the resolutions for TPAC in a minute. I wanted to know if either Reid or Benoit want to give an update on the circulation committee and how that has gone.
Yeah, really quickly, we did not meet this past month. We worked through the backlog that had accumulated over the last few years. And we had 1 request that had come in the meantime as a new request, so we were waiting until we got a few more to meet again, because our meetings are also dependent on the availability of the SQ, and their preference is to come and participate when there's a few items on the table as opposed to just one. So we should be meeting again on the 3rd Tuesday of this month.
Thank you. With regards to the seniors committee, Benoit, did you want to give an update? You're okay? All right. On this past Friday, I attended the annual regroupement des sociétés de développement commercial. Peter and I had gone to the first one that they ever held last year that was in Three Rivers. This year it was in Montreal, so it was easy. I just got on the train and went. And it was very interesting. The Minister of Economy, so Mr. Fitzgibbons, was there, but the Mayoress of Longueuil was there presenting that they are about to put in place an SDC, and they're very excited about it. And we received several reports from different SDCs in Montreal as well on the value and the importance of having that group essentially maintain and heighten the attractivity of commercial arteries, particularly with regards to this being the hardest period for merchants following the pandemic, as this is the year where they are now having to pay back any loans that they have received. So it was, I think, very interesting. I shared bits and pieces, not enough with Peter, but hopefully we will continue in this sense. I believe you will be giving an update in a minute. With regards to culture, we keep deferring the date on when the launch for the questionnaire. This is the survey on the offering, the cultural offering in Hudson, which will serve as the foundation to our cultural committee's policy work. Unfortunately, the group that is working on putting together the actual physical mail-out ran into a bit of a technical snag, so now our Director of Culture and Recreation is giving them a helping hand, and I believe that we will be taking that part of the process in-house to help them out and to get it out as soon as possible. So, though in theory, it should come into your mailboxes in May, and I'm sorry for the continued delay. Meetings with the mayor I will be holding, not as per last month because of the ice storm, but as typically set in the past. So next Saturday, May 6th, at Halcrow Cottage from 10 to 12. You're welcome to come and bring any questions, comments, ask me on updates on anything that is of interest to you. The group can vary between 1 to 12 people to date. It's interesting, some weeks or some months, it's mostly Francophone people who attend, and sometimes, anyway, just so we'll flip back and forth in languages depending on who's there, and flip on topics on depending. I don't really prepare anything specific. It is really meant to be much more of an informal setting. I think, Peter, I may just let you go on. So I have 9 pages here, but you do not need my 9 pages. I remind you that the CMM's Agora, so this is every 2 years. La Communauté Métropolitaine de Montréal, this is the Greater Montreal area, as reporting on their PMAD, so that's le Plan Métropolitain d'Aménagement de Développement. This is their master plan on how development, transport, and environment protection are advancing. They provide every 2 years an opportunity for members of the public, for the elected, for professionals to attend this one day and to speak, to essentially present questions, ask questions, and present positions so that these can be integrated into revisions to this master plan. As you may know, the master plan is undergoing a revision right now. Today I received, because I sit on that special committee or commission, today I received the first draft, so this is 220 pages. I just received it at 5 p.m. I don't think I'll be reading every single word, but I certainly did attend 5 of those working meetings. And there's a team, of course, of people at the regional level and at the South Shore level that is working on this with me and looking at all the items that we have raised through the meetings to make sure that they have been integrated to date. This revised plan, the first draft, is expected to be adopted by the CMM before, I want to say before the summer, but I believe it's in September, so that then the period of 120 days for public review, again, of this first draft, to provide comments, but also all municipalities and everything, to receive those comments and to be able to integrate it into the next step. So the PMAT is scheduled to be operational December of 2025, so that's after the next elections, at which point then each MRC, there are 14 in the Greater Montreal area, will be responsible for changing the regional plans, and I believe they'll have 1 year to do so, so it's between 1 and 2 years. And then once that is done, in effect, each municipality, so that's 82 municipalities in the Greater Montreal area, have to change their master plans and bylaws to be in conformity with that plan. So by the time the revision to this Greater Montreal Master Plan comes into effect locally, it's looking more like 2027 to 2028. The good news is at this point, it seems that they recognize that modulation of density should be easier amongst regions, whereas before we could do it within our municipalities. It seems that they understand that it should be much more concentrated towards the primary corridors for transport, and that corridor of transport is being consolidated and bona fide since the arrival of the REM, of course, but they're working more in arteries now rather than TODs, which is great news. So it is moving in the right way, but I do encourage as many of you as possible. You have to sign up. I forget what the fee is. It might be about $80 to attend. There's a lot of conferences during that day, so it's May 23rd, and it is at the Palais des Congrès in Montreal. I'm going to, paving. I should talk about paving. I'll do that, then I'll give you the floor. Paving. Last month, Council was presented with a couple of options for road work to be done this fall. There will be the second layer added to Main Road East. The work will start once la période de dégel, so this is the freeze-thaw period, is lifted, which I believe is May 18th. So soon after that, they can start. Heavier loads can be transported, so that is for, you know, the asphalt and everything. So they will start preparing and completing the second surface. After that has been done, we will be able to paint the lines properly and make sure that they follow the orientations that we've given to date. So the end of that work is, at this point, scheduled for mid-June. End of June. So you see we have a slight slide, which is good. So the paving program, apart from Main East, as you know, for Lakeview, the subsidy has been approved in essence. Now we're providing the details of what goes into the subsidy. We are looking to add to Lakeview a section of Selkirk, where Selkirk will be slightly widened. But also because there are 2 certificates of authorization, or at least one for some of the ditching and the water drainage along Lakeview, that, as we'd explained in the past, the delays for those range closer to a year, which means that until we have those CAs, we are not able to engage the services of the company, the construction company. So chances are Lakeview will start in the spring next year and not this year. Ça va? Oui. All right. So the paving streets, and some people here might be interested in hearing and learning of these. There are 8 segments and/or streets. There's 2 streets. So Butternut, Blankenship for a section between Main and St. Thomas Park, Pine between Ridge to the end of Pine, Oakland between Ridge and Ridge where it does that dogleg, Charleswood from Cote to where the loop of Charleswood happens, Forest View, Sterling, Windcrest from Cavagnal to the western intersection with Westwood. So that totals approximately 2.8 kilometers. So we are making progress, but there is still, if we have 78 kilometers of roads, we are still looking at a very long paving program. We will establish in the coming months how quickly we can resurface the worst roads. At this point, We have some roads that are A because they've been redone. We have no roads that are Cs, but we have roads in Bs and Ds, if I remember correctly. The worst being, of course, the Ds, where about half of our roads are in the Ds, if I remember.
40%.
40%, 40%.
Oui, à peu près.
So we will have to look at what our available budget and how quickly we want to be doing that. But if we think that 40% of 78, how good is your math?
40% of 78.
So it's less than half. So 35, maybe 30 kilometers of roads that need to be done. And at this point, we're doing them at the rate of about 2.5 kilometers a year. So that gives you an idea of we're looking at a long period. All right, I will stop talking now. Peter, you wanted to give us an update on?
On a few things. Well, I did want to touch on the SDC, but primarily there's something that I want to address that I felt like this was the right forum to do so. And so some of you may have seen on social media recently there was a heated exchange about terraces in Hudson, and I want to touch on that, and I want to do it in this forum because I think it's the proper place to do it. And I thought long and hard about how to describe, and I'm going to tone it down and just say that I was disappointed. You know, I think I love Hudson because I feel like we're a small community, we have each other's backs, we go into places, we support each other, we keep an eye on each other's kids, and so when I saw this unfold on social media, I thought to myself, we're better than this. Like, where is this coming from? You know, and the people that sit here, it's not like we were elected and all of a sudden we took a pill and became the dumbest people on the planet. You know, we're still the same people that you guys kind of voted for. There's reasons behind the decisions that we take, and we're always open to conversations. When I saw the words that were used to describe some of the people sitting up front here, the mayor, the council, you know, you got to remember that we're parents, we're your neighbors, we're your friends, we're your customers, we're your fellow Hudsonites, like your fellow citizens, you know. So throwing darts like that is it's really not warranted and doesn't do anything constructive. It doesn't build a better community. I'm sacrificing a lot of my time. A lot of people here are sacrificing a lot of their time so that we can put in the work, so that we can do something concrete that builds a better Hudson. And, you know, there were 229 posts, you know, there's over 5,200 people in Hudson. That's not even 4%. So it's our job here to listen to all 52 or 5,400 people in Hudson and get the best out of everyone and take action accordingly, you know. So don't be surprised if you see a post of 200, you know, comments on social media and we don't partake because it's not the right forum. We're lucky to have Darren that every once in a while attempts to, you know, to address something and gets trampled on. And you know, I love his professionalism and his patience. Unfortunately, you're not going to see me go through that because I just don't think it's the right thing. I've seen how hard Chloe works, how many hours she puts into this, all the associations and the meetings she goes to, and I don't know where she finds the hours in a day or in a week to do all this. So really to come out and to say some of the things that were said out there is really inappropriate.
It's disheartening. You know, it's disheartening. It is disheartening.
And, you know, I think what we often hear people complain, but I never saw a thread of 200 plus comments about the amazing work that all these people over here did when we were cooking in the kitchen over here, rolling up our sleeves, serving people, taking time away from our families to do all this. Yesterday, we spent half a day together trying to see how we can work better together as a group. You know, and me too, I'd like to be sitting at home, you know, with a glass of Chardonnay watching a football game or something. But I've put that aside for 4 years to try and, you know, make this a better place, and I think all these people have as well. So I think it's warranted to have a little patience. As far as the terraces, I want to set some of the record straight. This is not a new bylaw. This is not something that this council has decided we are stopping this. This is something that the previous council actually put in place to help restaurants with COVID, through the COVID times, through the pandemic and the restrictions. And this is something that this council decided to carry on doing for last year. And what we did is we followed the lead of the Régie des Alcools, who also decided for one more year we're going to help the restaurateurs do this. And so it was an easy bandwagon for us to hop on and to say, okay, we will follow that lead and continue that. So it is not a new bylaw or a new regulation that we decided that all of a sudden we figured that maybe most Hudsonites don't like patios or sitting outside on a nice sunny day with a glass of champagne. We realize that people like patios, you know, and terraces. So this is not us trying to take Christmas away from you, you know. Last year was the last one-year extension, so I pulled up the resolution to make sure that I wasn't daydreaming, and sure enough, it's very clear that it was the last year. I would have liked to start having these conversations maybe last year, would have given us some more time, some more leeway to have some more in-depth discussions with regards to the terraces. And, you know, I love businesses in Hudson. I mean, I don't think there's anybody that could be more pro-business in Hudson. I want these small businesses to thrive. I want the more the merrier. I think that the more successful we can have as a business community, the better it will be for all of our citizens. And the key thing is that everything that I do is for the whole of the merchants. So it's a very unpopular stance when one merchant or two are asking for something. Really, I think the responsibility that I take is to look at the community as a whole. So that takes a little bit longer. There's a few more stakeholders involved, and it's not a knee-jerk reaction, but I don't think I'd want to be part of a council that rules with an iron fist based on a decision that what we think is right. It's what we all think is right as a community. So the considerations that we might need to take into consideration when we're talking about terraces, well, we have parking restrictions in Hudson. So how does it look on behalf of someone who's trying to establish a business, and we're saying, no, you can't open your business and sell lollipops because you don't have enough parking, or you have to pay for the parking that you don't have, and on the other hand, we're going and giving parking spaces away. So I'm not saying one is right or wrong. I'm just saying that it's a topic that needs discussion, and we want input from a lot of different sources on this. The safety issue has come up, and it's not a question of is it safe or is it not safe, but it's come up. It's come up from customers that have sat on these patios and have said, I don't feel safe. I really didn't feel like I was secure. And I know they can sit inside, and I know that there's other alternatives how we can solve these problems, but it's still a topic that needs to be discussed as a whole. As far as the other businesses in town, there are restaurants that are paying a premium to have a space with a patio. So might want to hear from them, like, what do you think? You know, is it fair? How do we make it fair? How do we make it so that you don't feel like the town of Hudson is favoring one business over another? So that's another conversation to be had with these businesses. We've had a lot of comments about the aesthetics, you know, like some people loved them, some people hated them, some people thought they looked ugly, nice, and well, it's another topic of conversation that we need to have. Like, if we're going to go down this road, how do we make sure that, you know, these things are what we want them to be? We already have space, and we dictate someone putting in a screened-in porch on Main Road, and they have to go through TPAC. So, you know, it might make sense to have some type of standards with regard to patios. And you know, if there are landlords that have spaces for rent, how does it diminish the attractiveness of their spaces that they have right now that are vacant? You know, does it make it less attractive? That's another
I'm sorry. This is not on our agenda. Madam Mayor.
I am sorry, I'm the chairperson.
This is not on our agenda.
Please sit down.
I accept your introduction, but this is not appropriate.
And you are not the chairperson.
I know I'm not the chair.
And I did not give you.
I do not appreciate this. If you wish me to leave,
you do what you want to.
I'm just saying this is not appropriate,
and
Madam Mayor.
I chair this meeting. Thank you.
Not appropriate.
Please continue.
So you'll be happy to know that that part's done with. As far as the STC,
it's not done with.
As far as the STC goes, so we received a ton of documents recently that have been scanned, sent to our external resource, and once they have the chance to go through everything and give us clear options and guidance, then we'll be planning a next in-person meeting. So look out for a communication on that. It's, you know, could be in June, it's maybe looking like, hopefully. So, and I guess the last thing, you know, when when I came into to my seat as a councillor, I really gained a huge appreciation for the people that work for the town of Hudson and the employees and how the process works. And it's been night and day. It's been such an educational process. And if some of you really want to make a difference, I really urge you in 2.5 years to put your name in the hat and run for council and dedicate a bit of your time to come and see how it works. And I think it's the right venue to do it. So.
Thank you so much, Peter. I appreciate it. Anyway, it's really great when councillors do prendre la parole. I give you the opportunity to speak and to give news on what you're working on. And I think it gives a good idea, a good sense to the rest of the community as to what our work really entails. And it's probably more interesting than us just going through our resolutions for you to get a little more background on what it is that we work on. So thank you. Well, I'll just close my opening word with the upcoming activities this month. So May 13th, the Nichoir and the Environment Committee will be putting together an event. Did you want to speak to it, Mark, quickly? Sure. Please go.
Okay, thank you, Chloe. May 13th is the Festival for Migratory Birds and Nature, which the Nichoir has been putting on traditionally in their end of town. But this year, they've asked to move it to Jack Layton Park just because of the stress on the birds when so many people are around the Nichoir. So Hudson is now a bit more involved. The Environment Committee is helping them out with their organization and putting up a table with some fun activities, one of which is starting the process of choosing a town bird. We're not officially doing it yet, but it is part of being a bird-friendly city. So we're just going to be putting some options out there and just getting feedback from people. In the Hudson Voice, it said it was the 17th of May. So just a correction, it's the 13th of May. There's a bunch of posters going up Saturday on the 13th from 10 to 2 at Jack Layton Park. So there'll be bird observation walks. There'll be loads of kiosks at Jack Layton Park and activities for the kiddos. And there is a backup venue if the water levels don't come down sufficiently. So just stay tuned for that. But for now, the plan is Saturday, May 13th, 10 to 2 at Jack Layton Park.
Excellent, thank you. May 17th is International Day Against Homophobia, and we will raise the rainbow flag. We probably will do it the Saturday or Friday to Friday. I don't want you guys coming out on a Saturday, but because it falls on a Wednesday, so really do a week. I have put the word out there. I will continue to put the word out there. If there's any activities that the community would like to put together to celebrate that day, please do. And transphobia. Oh, thank you. I love it when Reed corrects me. We are also, I forgot to mention to Elisabeth, but we should be getting, what's that flag?
The
transphobia.
Yeah,
the trans flag.
The pride flag that also includes the
There's like a V, a chevron that's in it. It is more specific to la transition. So if you can think of any events that you would like to have supported during that week, we would be glad to help with that. May 24th, the Scouts will be cleaning Sandy Beach as they have been doing in past years. Barbara Robinson, past councillor, once again has agreed to lead the kitchen in preparation of the dinner, so chili dinner. I believe all councillors will be attending. No, not you. So I won't be there, you won't be there, but the rest of them, I believe, will all be in the kitchen. And May 28th is the British Car Show. And I should add that next Monday, Greenwood is receiving their first guest speaker of the season, and it's Mrs. Reed, I believe, Liza Reed. Anyways, she sounds like a fascinating lady, so I do encourage you to come back here next week, Monday. It should be a very, very interesting conversation. So on that, moving on to the agenda. So item 1.1, adoption of the agenda. I will need a mover and a seconder. So Mark Gray, seconded by Peter Mate. That the agenda of the regular council meeting of today, May 1st, be and is hereby adopted as submitted. However, At line item 5.1, we have amended the title to read Application Authorization and Issuance of Tickets Designation Update. So just, it should be on this. See that? So this has been updated from the one that is online. C'est ça?
Donc, 1.1, adoption de l'ordre du jour. Donc, à l'effet que l'ordre du jour de la séance de ce soir soit adopté avec la légère modification dans le titre de l'item 5.1 pour qu'il soit désormais indiqué autorisation d'application et d'émission de constat, mise à jour des désignations.
Merci. Are there any objections to this resolution? Please raise your hand. There are none. It is carried unanimously. Section 2, confirmation of minutes, item 2.1. This is for the confirmation of the April 3rd, 2023 regular meeting minutes, whereas Council has reviewed the minutes of that meeting, of that regular meeting, and that the resolution is that the minutes of the Council meeting held on that date, so April 3rd, and is hereby approved as submitted. I will need a mover and a seconder, so Reed Thompson, seconded by Benoit Blais. Are there any objections? Please raise your hand. There are none. It is carried unanimously. En français. Je devrais te laisser parler en français avant que je passe le vote.
On va prendre le rythme.
It'll come back.
2.1, adoption du procès-verbal de la séance ordinaire du 3 avril. Donc, c'est la résolution pour que soit approuvé tel que présenté le procès-verbal de la dernière séance, tel que soumis.
Merci, Melissa. So I believe this will bring us to the first question period. Just perhaps for those who are online, there are approximately 15 people in the room. How many people are online?
18.
18, so it's about even. Last month was even too, it was pretty close. So we'll do as usual, take one from the room, one from online. Please come to the mic.
Madam Mayor, council members, am I speaking okay in the mic?
Yeah, so if you can just give your name, I don't want the number of your address, but are you a Hudson resident?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
On Crescent.
Okay,
My name is
great.
Kyle.
Hi, Kyle.
I live just across from the high school. Every day I see countless numbers of students walking towards the town. And I just happen to notice that there's no crosswalk from Crescent to Main. I'm also a coach of the cross-country and track team. And very often we run through the town. It's very difficult to manage the traffic. And I was wondering if the town would consider adding a crosswalk. That's my question.
It would be a question for le comité de circulation. So we have this circulation committee. It's great. Do you want to write it down and add it?
Where exactly are you looking? Crescent to Main or Côte St. Charles? At the corner of Côte St. Charles and Main? Or?
Crescent to Main. I think it's the most frequented crosswalk without a crosswalk.
Okay.
Actually.
I'll make a note.
SAQ would probably be just as busy.
Yeah, that's a good one too. If you could actually, feel free to send me an email tomorrow with a little bit more detail and maybe a couple pictures, and I'll put the request together for the circulation committee.
Sure. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Do we have a form online for that? I should look at you. So there are also forms online for the circulation committee in case there are other questions of this nature. It's always lovely to have you at the microphone, but also know that if you have any other items with regards to, usually it's speeding, it can be crosswalks, it could be, there's been questions on parking, I believe. Benoit, were there other items that get treated on the circulation committee?
Well, we did look a bit at Sandy Beach again.
Parking, yeah.
Parking,
Signage,
yeah.
Right. So if that gives you a bit of ideas, I believe that covers that item. Are there questions online?
Yeah, we have Carol Ann Mills.
Yes. Hello, Carol Ann.
Hello, good evening, and thank you, Peter. So I'll preface my question by saying thank you to all of you for all of the work that you do on our behalf.
Thank you.
I have two questions. I don't know if I can go ahead with both. I did see that you will be addressing the major power outage on the agenda. So you may already be answering my question, in which case just stop me. But I did want to ask if the town was considering having new builds obligated to put their hydro wiring underground from the pole to the homes. We are on Hemlock. The 3 homes that were built here in 2009 all have wiring from the pole to the houses underground, and yet we have 5 new builds that has not been a requirement. The new townhouse on Como Gardens is the same. The one house that was built at the same time as ours by the same builder has their wiring underground, and yet all of the new builds do not. So I'll leave that with you.
I think it's an excellent question. Certainly it's something for larger developments that are developed, right, where it is one developer who then spreads that cost across the different properties. I think it's more accessible in that sense. It is quite a big expense for people who are further away from the road. We can certainly look into it. It would be a definite nice to have. I just don't know the viability of asking for that. It does incur an extra cost, so maybe not in all sectors, but maybe, anyway, we'd have to look at it. It's a good question. Thank you for bringing it up.
Pleasure. Certainly when looking with at Willowbrook, that would have been a perfect opportunity to do that.
Absolutely.
Can I ask my second question?
Yes, please.
You are undoubtedly aware of the completion of the recent Hudson Earth Week cleanup. So I just want to take this opportunity as well to extend thanks and hats off to Rob Delorme and Suzanne Bullen for really their guidance, their enthusiasm, the inspiration, to all of the volunteers, and goodness gracious, but the businesses and people who have come forward with raffles or gift certificates rather, or to be given a draft for all the people who did participate. There is, however, a lot that that my husband and I attempted to clean up, which is adjacent to the new townhouse complex on Como Gardens. So that is a lot where the developer, I will assume, encountered a spring, then tried to fill the lot with gravel. It has remained looking like a parking lot. There is a lot of construction material on that lot that has yet to be cleaned up. It's been a while since that townhouse complex was completed. I don't know where that townhouse complex or how the town deals with builder developers in terms of perhaps keeping a certain amount of money in escrow until such time as the town inspector is able to go and verify completion of the site. If you walk by the townhouses, you'll see that the roofer who installed the shingles never bothered to remove all of the plastic. So the entire edge of every single one of those roofs shimmers in the breeze or glints in the sunshine, and eventually comes loose and becomes part of all the stuff that is accumulating on that lot and across in the water swamp area. So again, that's just to find out if there are plans for the developer, the builder, or the town to take over that property and clean it up. Be obligated to at least put topsoil on it, replant it, retree it. It was deforested and it's been left looking like a shambles.
Thank you for raising this. That developer was actually one of the ones that came to that public conversation. So I'm now in direct exchange with her, but I'll ask that the town reach out and look to see what our provisions are, or what type of framing we put around completion of projects. Huh? Qu'est-ce qu'il y a? Ça va? Okay. But thank you very much, Carol-Ann. Yeah.
Can I mention something if you are in conversation, if someone will try and have a look? One of the things with that project is the ditching. I'll call it ditching in front of those properties. And there's something about the fact that because it's an actively moving body of river water, so that there are actually dangerous ditches in front, some of which have been aesthetically done, but again, dangerous ditching if you go and drive by. But one of the things the developer has done, or the builder has done, is the downspouts on the sides, I'll say the east-west sides of the exterior townhouses, so the ones that don't actually share a common wall. Those downspouts exhaust, if I will, water directly to the foundations of the properties. Okay. So again, where I'd like to see builders actually be a little bit more intelligent and run culverts to the ditch. Thank you.
Thank you. Good questions. All right. We're moving on to one from the room. Hello, Steve.
Steve
I know
Farrell.
you're a Hudson
I'm a Hudson resident.
Yes, I know.
I just wanted to make a comment or a question on the sewer connection supporting program. I think I've mentioned this once before, but I wanted to just bring it up for consideration for the other councillors. And I understand why you're doing it. Okay, you're helping to finance a connection. A lot of people can't afford to put the connection in right away or even in the future because they just don't have the funds. But the other issue that I find, okay, is, and in particular that I've started bicycling around, and there are some very nice pungent smells in certain sectors of the community. And that's with respect to people who do not have the availability of a sewer, but they have very old septic systems, and some of them can't afford it. This is something I'd just like you to consider as another amendment potentially, that why would you not offer the same $10,000 loan to someone who doesn't have a sewer in front, but also is under maybe financial hardship, to help them defray some of the cost and borrow at a reasonable rate, which it seems like it's very reasonable, and then choose a 5 or 10 year period to pay it back. It's just a comment I'm making that you can think and consider of maybe potentially. That's it.
Regarder ça. I got a nod. I understand that's a possible. Thank you. Are there questions?
We have discussed that.
And what was the outcome?
Well, it's next phase. But
We have discussed that.
Yeah.
No, I know it's come up.
Yeah.
I just don't remember where it was
no,
going.
but it's an ongoing,
It has been raised.
it's evolving, but it has
Yes,
been raised.
It has been raised.
Because I share that sentiment, Steve.
Yeah. Was there anyone online? No. So please go ahead. And I know you're a Hudson resident.
Helen Kurganski, live on Quarry Point. First of all, I wanted to mention, when you were mentioning all the activities in the month of May, the 13th of May, the same day as the Migratory Bird Celebration, is also International Fair Trade Day. And Hudson being a fair trade town, the Hudson Creative Hub, formerly the St. Mary's Church Hall, is going to celebrate in honor of International Fair Trade Day. We're going to have an international market with all kinds of vendors from all over who are going to be selling wares to celebrate. And then when they come to us, we'll make certain that they come to the town and our businesses. I just wanted to mention that.
Sounds lovely.
And I just wanted to, I heard the discussion, I didn't see I'm not on Facebook, so I don't see all the discussions and all the things you alluded to, Peter. But I do understand what a complex question this terrace is, but I also understand for a lot of the businesses, it can mean, you know, a life or death situation, a survival. Times are difficult, costs are crazy. And I wondered if there was something the council could do, like to accelerate the process and find a way to the better every one of our businesses in the downtown core survives and thrives and attracts people, the better it is. Everybody is going to benefit from such a success. We want to have a thriving town that's alive, and we don't want. And in order to do that, council can certainly do a lot to help. And I'm asking you to find a way to accelerate the processes, to give a hand to everyone. You know, it's like, you know, why is everything, you know, the high grade thing, you know, why is everything more fresher? Because more people eat them. Why do more people eat them? It's because it's fresher. Why is everybody going to want to come to Hudson? Because it's alive, it's vibrant, it's a happy place. And I think for the people who need a helping hand or adjustment of rules and bylaws, find a way to make it work for the benefit of everyone.
Thank you, Helen. No, I believe this is it for the first. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Yes. No. It's okay. I saw you move and I forgot about it. Sorry, June. I also know you're a Hudson resident.
Yeah. In the flood zone, by the way.
Yes. I hope that's
just a little
going.
Update on the flood today.
Yeah.
Just prior to coming here, I had a visit from our amazing fire department advising that the waters are rising. So you mentioned 7:30 tomorrow morning, but they're already out there advising people in the flood zone to be aware, and I'm to expect quite a different scenario in the morning. So, and they'll be there to watch over whatever's happening.
Is it coming close now?
Yeah, it came up a lot this afternoon. It had receded over the past few days, but it was quite striking this afternoon.
And the Vivry too, right, was very large.
Yeah, the ground is full of water. It can't take any more in, so it's all flowing.
I think it was almost an inch of water, of rain that came down yesterday. So it was a lot.
Yeah, and you know, also at the ferry tonight on my way here, that it had really risen a lot in the driveway there too. So
have you used any of the sandbags?
No, not yet.
Not yet. All right.
No, but got my fingers crossed.
Thank you for the update.
Okay, but in addition to my update, I also had a question.
Yes.
As a citizen, I'd like to know what it takes for me as a citizen to request a revision of bylaws so that we can have the new buildings, new developments or whatever that are happening in our town have more of a setback from the actual road.
Is this more in Maine, on the main
I'm talking about Maine, I'm talking about Cameron, I'm talking about the building
the commercial
at the bottom
core?
of, the commercial core as well, because I find that they're way too close to the road, and there was one opposite 182, it was the house that, there was a clear-cut lot, the trees were all cut.
The bend with the hill?
On the south side of the road. And it was pushed back. The house is back in the corner, which makes it look all that much more acceptable, like more pleasing to the eye. Whereas other ones that are right smack on the road, it just doesn't fit to the scenario of our town.
So you asked how on Thursday?
So how do I need to make a formal request?
No, there will be a process through public consultation. I want our residents and our elected to be part of this process. We've been waiting for it for a long time, so there will be several opportunities for input to come in from the community. We haven't set exactly how. We are about to sit down, Martin and I and Etienne, to go through, I think it's a proposal for the call to tender. I think that's what it is in the schedule. So that can be something, again, that I'll reiterate and see and ask how will that be inserted, because I do want that feedback, that back and forth.
Yeah, well, I just think if there's a certain setback from the road, there's like a space where you can add shrubbery, grass, like something to buffer the
So what I expect will happen, sort of what we did with the RCI, I expect there will be a link on the website to receive ideas, and then eventually we'll do more in person. But we won't open that until we're ready to receive, right? We're not there yet.
What timeline are we talking about? Will there be like
sometime, I would say towards the beginning of the fall, sort of around that.
But are there any other buildings being planned to be built?
The revisions will take at least a year. And we aren't going to be starting the revisions until we've hired someone to do it, and we have to go to public tender. Will we freeze first? We're presently frozen for protection of areas of interest or natural areas of interest. That's still something that we're discussing. It's possible, but do we freeze the whole town, part of the town?
No, but my concern is like if there is another building in the planning stages, like let's use the
only way we can stop that is by putting a freeze down next month and stop, so that anyone who submits a permit basically can't use the existing rules and regulations.
So that's a possibility where you have the ability to stop something, and I'm going to use the building.
It's the only way we can formally stop something from happening.
Okay. Because my concern is also the building between the IGA and the SAQ.
Yes.
So that's
well, that's already been submitted, right, through TPAC for the SPAPE approval, and it's also, as you know, been submitted for first review of the demolition committee, and it is tonight. I should have mentioned that in the opening. Is part of the resolutions for the appeal, right? So it was appealed, and tonight through resolution we will be giving our response to the appeal.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
I have one question online.
Please go ahead.
Ryan Young.
Yes. Hello, Ryan.
Ryan?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you, and I know you're a merchant and not a resident, but
yes. Exactly. So, yeah, I just wanted to touch on a few of the things that were brought up this evening. First, in regards to the Facebook post and everything like that, in the private talks that I've had a chance to meet with you guys face to face about things. I just want to continue again to say that I do vehemently disagree with the rude stance that some people took. Never my intention. Like I said to you guys, I know you have a thankless job, and you know, I'm happy that we were able to have certain conversations, and I appreciate us being able to continue working forward on this. I know that there are certain things that you want to see on my end that I am compiling for you. So I just want to take a minute to thank you all for keeping this open for a little longer.
Thank you, Ryan, for raising this with others, and thank you for your phone call today, and thank you for our exchange yesterday as well. Anyway, I think this is heading in the right direction, and I really like the getting to know you better, but also having you and others here, that we do take into consideration a lot of different elements when we make our decisions. And no, sometimes they're not popular, but sometimes they're also linked to the fact that we don't have necessarily the human resources at this time to give a better, faster service. So thank you for your patience, and I understand this is critical for you.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys.
You're welcome. Thank you. I believe that's it. Yes? All right. Good. It is 8:35 p.m. I need to shorten my opening statements. All right. Section 3, Urban Planning and Environment. So here, this is the item that I was just mentioning to June. With regards to, we received, or the Demolition Committee that is chaired, headed by Doug Smith, we received the request for demolition of 498 Main, which is the building located to the east of the SAQ. So I will read through l'entièreté. This is a resolution. It's quite long. It's 2.5 pages. So here we go. Whereas the Demolition Committee's decision to refuse the demolition of the building located at 498 Main at its meeting held on January 24th of 2023, whereas on February 14th, 2023, the owner of the building requested council to review the decision of the Demolition Committee and submitted a presentation and documentation in support of his request for review, whereas bylaw 652-2015 concerning demolition, which determines the elements to be considered in the evaluation of the request, considering the documents submitted in support of the demolition request, including those submitted during the review by the Demolition Committee. Whereas council has given the applicant and his lawyer an opportunity to be heard during a private meeting held on April 17th, 2023, regarding his request for review before rendering its decision. Whereas council, ruling on an appeal of a decision of the Demolition Committee, may confirm the committee's decision or make any decision that the committee should have made. Whereas among the evaluation criteria to be taken into consideration in determining whether the demolition is warranted, council gives precedence to the following elements: the aesthetic character or the quality of the neighborhood, this being the distinctive architectural style which merits preservation in view of the town's visual qualities; the intended use of the vacated land; the age of the building, if it is 75 years or more; the original owner is an important heritage person, local or other; the person or persons who built the original building is historically important; the building's history is of particular interest to the community. So whereas council has taken into consideration the building's condition as presented by the owner and noted that it had not been maintained or been repaired in recent years, whereas council has taken into consideration the state of the architectural appearance, including its deterioration, noting the absence of visible repairs and that this state does not justify its demolition. Moreover, it has been left derelict by the owner. Whereas the cost of restoration criteria could not be assessed as the owner has not submitted any evaluation of the restoration cost, whereas this building could be upgraded to its intended use in accordance with the urban planning bylaw, including a possible extension, while taking into account a harmonious integration in its environment and by contributing to a unique and distinctive quality within the neighborhood. Whereas the small size of the building with its front porch, long and narrow 4-pane windows, 1850s red brick cladding, and its mansard roof with decorative slate tiles is very distinctive, and all these elements form a unique and interesting ensemble. Whereas the building appears to date back to 1856 and represents an important historical landmark of the Hudson Village core for nearly 170 years. Whereas the builder, George D. Hodgson, and the 2 successive generations are part of one of the founding families of Hudson, the Hodgsons, who arrived from Cumberland, England in 1824. His grandson, Frederick Robert Hodgson, lived at 498 Main with his brother Keith and his wife Jacqueline Cadieux for the rest of his life. He was the general manager of Hudson and Hudson Heights for many years, as well as the Hudson Yacht Club and the Hudson Hosiery industry, which attest to its historical importance to Hudson. Whereas the demolition of this building would represent a significant loss to Hudson's history and to the distinctive architectural quality which enhances the character of this sector of the village. This resolution is to confirm the decision rendered by the Demolition Committee on January 24th, 2023 to deny the request for the demolition of the building located at 498 Main. En français.
3.1. 498 Main demande d'appel de la décision du comité de démolition. Considérant la décision du comité de démolition de refuser la démolition du bâtiment situé au 498 Main lors de la séance tenue le 24 janvier 2023, considérant que le 14 février dernier, le propriétaire du bâtiment a demandé au conseil de réviser la décision du comité de démolition et soumis un exposé ainsi que des documents au soutien de sa demande de révision. Considérant le règlement 652-2015 concernant la démolition, qui détermine les éléments à prendre en considération dans l'évaluation de la demande, considérant les documents déposés en soutien de la demande de démolition, incluant ceux versés lors de l'examen par le comité de démolition, considérant que le Conseil a donné l'opportunité au demandeur et à son avocat de se faire entendre lors d'une rencontre privée tenue le 17 avril dernier relativement à sa demande de révision avant de rendre sa décision, considérant que le Conseil, statuant sur une demande de révision du comité de démolition, peut confirmer la décision ou rendre toute autre décision que celui-ci aurait dû prendre, considérant que parmi les critères d'évaluation à prendre en considération dans la détermination de l'opportunité de la démolition, le Conseil attribue une prépondérance aux éléments suivants. Le caractère esthétique, c'est-à-dire le style architectural particulier qui mérite d'être conservé en fonction des qualités visuelles de la ville ou la qualité de vie du voisinage, l'utilisation projetée du sol dégagé, l'âge du bâtiment s'il a 75 ans et plus, le propriétaire original s'il est un personnage patrimonial important, local ou autre, la personne ou les personnes qui ont construit le bâtiment original ont une importance historique et l'historique du bâtiment s'il représente un intérêt particulier pour la communauté. Considérant que le Conseil a pris en considération l'état du bâtiment tel que présenté par le propriétaire, en notant qu'il n'aurait pas été entretenu ou fait l'objet de réparations ces dernières années, considérant que le Conseil a pris en considération l'état de l'apparence architecturale, incluant ses détériorations, en notant l'absence de réparation visible et que cet état ne justifie pas sa démolition, d'autant plus qu'il a été laissé à l'abandon par le propriétaire, considérant que le critère du coût de restauration n'a pas pu être évalué, compte tenu que le propriétaire n'a pas soumis d'évaluation précisant le coût de restauration, considérant que ce bâtiment pourrait être requalifié pour un usage conforme à la réglementation d'urbanisme, incluant avec un agrandissement potentiel, tout en tenant compte d'une insertion harmonieuse dans son environnement et en contribuant à la formation d'un ensemble de qualités distinctives à l'intérieur de son voisinage, considérant que le petit gabarit du bâtiment avec galerie avant, fenestration à 4 carreaux aux proportions étroites et longues, parement de briques rouges des années 1850 et son toit mansard avec tuiles d'ardoise au motif décoratif est très distinctif et tous ces éléments forment un ensemble unique et d'intérêt. Considérant que le bâtiment semble dater de 1856 et qu'il représente un repère historique important du patrimoine bâti du noyau villageois d'Hudson depuis près de 170 ans, considérant que le bâtisseur, George D. Hudson, et les 2 générations successives font partie d'une des familles fondatrices d'Hudson, les Hudson, arrivés de Cumberland, Angleterre, en 1824. Son petit-fils, Frédéric Robert Hudson, a vécu au 498 Main avec son frère Keith et sa femme Jacqueline Cadieux jusqu'à la fin de ses jours. Il a été le directeur général d'Hudson et d'Hudsonites pendant plusieurs années, ainsi que du Hudson Yacht Club et de l'industrie Hudson Oisery, ce qui témoigne de son importance historique pour Hudson. Considérant que la démolition de ce bâtiment représenterait une perte énorme pour l'histoire d'Hudson et pour la qualité architecturale distinctive qui rehausse le caractère de ce secteur du village, la résolution vise à confirmer la décision rendue par le comité de démolition le 24 janvier dernier de refuser la demande de démolition du bâtiment situé au 498 Main.
Do I have a mover to my right? Peter Mate, seconded by Reed Thompson. Are there any objections to this resolution? Please raise your hand. There are none. It is,
how high do I have to raise it?
I'm sorry, I hadn't seen it. It is passed by majority. Item 3.2, 69 Crescent, minor exemption. I will be reading the resolutions for TPAC as I chaired that meeting. Peter was away on business, if I remember correctly. So, item 3.2, 69 Crescent, minor exemption. Whereas a minor exemption request was received, and if I could ask you to keep your voices down because I hear you. So, whereas a minor exemption request was received for the property located on lot 1832490, so this is 69 Crescent, to allow a front setback of 3.11 meters. Whereas the Town Planning Advisory Committee's unanimous recommendation to refuse the minor exemption request, considering that further to the unfavorable recommendation of the Urban Planning Advisory Committee, the description of the minor exemption was adjusted to better define it and now reads as follows. Ça, c'est dans le règlement qu'on fait l'ajustement ou c'est dans la recommandation qu'on fait l'ajustement?
C'est dans la recommandation.
Okay, so in the recommendation was to allow a front setback for the existing garage of 3.11 meters instead of the required minimum of 7 meters, and a front setback for the proposed addition of 6.41 meters instead of the required minimum of 7 meters as prescribed by Section 505 of the zoning bylaw for that zone, which is zone R33. And whereas Council deemed it appropriate to obtain a new recommendation from the Planning Advisory Committee with the revised formulation, so this is a precision that was given, in accordance with the regulation in force, interested parties in this proceeding are invited to be heard by Council. So this resolution is that the request be submitted. So actually I would be giving now the option of anyone in the room or online who would want to be heard on this. So again, if I describe this, this is a residential home located on Crescent, which is in a bend. And presently the house is placed in the bend where there is a roof connecting the throughway between the main building and the existing single-car garage. In looking to do their project, which is essentially closing that section with walls, then it becomes non-conforming to the existing bylaws. The concern that TPAC had was that in allowing to bring it into conformity by simply putting those walls, is that because of the relationship of the building to the front of the lot, it could possibly give the right to build out the front of the house for almost the same, well, let's say half of the entire length of the building. So it sort of gave then a permission that would not be desirable on a lot. So it would be fine if it was just for a corner of that building, which it is right now. So we were looking to see if there was a way in the law in order to just lock it to that very specific corner, rather than give that house, that property, the ability, as you'd mentioned, to build right up against the road. So in this case, because it comes up to TPAC, comes up as a minor derogation, we have control over that. So this is why we asked for that precision, and now Council has asked that it go back to TPAC to confirm that that is what they were looking for. So now, if anyone would like to come to the microphone or online to be heard with regards to their request, I invite you to the mic. Is that all right? All right. So now moving on to the adoption of this resolution. En français, mais j'ai pas fait l'autre partie, mais ça va? Tu veux que je termine ma partie?
Oui.
So I have to finish the English part, which is this resolution is that the request be resubmitted to the Planning Advisory Committee to obtain a recommendation with the adjusted formulation. And the resolution would be to defer the decision concerning the minor exemption request. So it's not necessarily to refuse it, but to delay it to next month.
Oui. 3.2, 69 Crescent, dérogation mineure. Donc, considérant qu'une demande de dérogation mineure a été reçue concernant l'immeuble au 69 Crescent pour autoriser une marge de recul avant de 3,11 mètres, considérant la recommandation unanime du comité consultatif d'urbanisme de refuser la demande telle que présentée, considérant que suite à cette recommandation défavorable par le CCU, la description de la dérogation mineure a été ajustée afin de pouvoir l'ajuster pour mieux la circonscrire. Donc, la dérogation mineure pourrait être formulée ainsi, soit d'autoriser une marge de recul avant de 3,11 mètres pour le garage au lieu du 7 mètres requis et une marge de recul avant de 6,41 mètres pour l'agrandissement proposé, donc de venir distinguer les deux marges. Donc, considérant que le Conseil juge opportun d'obtenir une nouvelle recommandation du CCU selon cette nouvelle formulation, la résolution vise à retourner le dossier au CCU et de reporter. Mais avant de voter conformément à la réglementation, les personnes présentes et intéressées pourraient se faire entendre au micro par le Conseil.
Merci. Est-ce qu'on invite en français aussi? Oui. C'est bon. Is there anyone interested in French? No? All right. So I will need a mover. Reed Thompson, seconded by Peter Mate. Are there any objections to this resolution? Please raise your hand. There are none. It is carried unanimously. Item 3.3, 413 Main. This is for SPAPE major renovations, where a permit request was received for major renovations. The Town Planning Advisory Committee's unanimous recommendation to refuse the SPAPE request. And here is the summary of the unfulfilled criteria. So the project as presented failed to comply with the building's specific architectural characteristics during the work, along with its specific and overall characteristics, to prioritize work that aims to return the building to its original character, to prioritize work that aims to return the building, c'est une répétition, deux fois, to ensure that the architectural elements respect the architectural character of the building, and to ensure that the exterior finished materials are in harmony with the architecture of the building and that their number be reduced to a minimum. So this is essentially a building that is located on Main, as I just described, and it is unusual in that it is a semi-detached house that is presently finished in stucco and is quite quaint. No, it's not that one.
This is the rectory.
Okay, then
the rectory.
Oh, thank you. So there are two on Main this month, sorry. So this is the back of the presbytery, where the intent of the religious community was to gift Father Demers with a sunroom at the back of the presbytery. And this is the second time that TPAC has seen it. And we will be putting in place a working committee to facilitate the exchange between what the intent is of the SPAPE with regards to the responses that we've had or the projects that have been presented. So in order for that to go a little bit smoother for them, for the exchange to be a little simpler. So essentially the second time it came back heavier, clad in brick, looking to reuse the brick at the back of the presbytery, and it sort of had taken a different tangent than it needs to remain something reasonably simple, 3-season, or clarify whether it's 3-season or 4-season. So it'll be simpler if there's an exchange, a direct exchange with representative of council and representatives of TPAC, as we did with Villa Wyman. So we're offering that process to them as well, and I believe it will be Reed and Peter, so chaired by Peter, and the 2 members of TPAC will be Victoria and David Murray, correct? I believe that was what it was, I think so, anyway. So again, because the TPAC files, now that we've moved TPAC to the day after our council meeting, so essentially TPAC is tomorrow, there's several weeks that take place between having seen the files and presenting them here to you. So 602 Main is that one. Is the next. Oh, on n'a pas voté, c'est ça? Oui, vas-y.
3.3, 414 Main PIA pour rénovation majeure. Donc, il s'agit d'une demande de permis. La recommandation unanime du CCU était de refuser le PIA pour les raisons suivantes. Donc, les critères suivants n'ont pas été remplis, soit de respecter lors d'intervention les caractéristiques propres à l'architecture du bâtiment ainsi que ses caractéristiques particulières et d'ensemble, de privilégier des travaux qui visent à redonner au bâtiment son caractère d'origine, de préserver le caractère architectural des bâtiments, d'assurer que les éléments architecturaux respectent le caractère architectural du bâtiment et d'assurer que les matériaux de revêtement extérieur cadrent bien avec l'architecture du bâtiment et que leurs nombres soient réduits au minimum. Donc, la résolution vise à refuser le PIA relatif à la demande de permis.
Merci, merci. So do I have a mover? Peter Mate, seconded by Mark Gray. Are there any objections to this resolution? Please raise your hand. There are none. It is carried unanimously. All right, next one, 3.4, 602 Main, that is the one. So I will read this one briefly. So again, a permit request was received for major renovation work, whereas the Town Planning Advisory Committee's unanimous recommendation to refuse the SPAPE. The summary of the unfulfilled criteria is to respect the architectural characteristics of the building as well as its unique and global characteristics, to preserve the architectural character of the building of interest, to ensure that architectural elements respect the architectural character of the building, and to ensure that the exterior finished materials are in harmony. So you see it's pretty much the same. And so this resolution will be to refuse the SPAPE of the permit request. And if I describe this project briefly, it is a semi-detached home on Main on the lakeside that is quaint, is attached so to another half. And this is really work for the property to the left, looking to change the siding from its stucco. That type of stucco is characteristic of a period in Hudson, but also the shape and the placement of the windows are also very much in balance and in proportion with the front facade. And it was felt that the proposed revisions to the house would be losing some of its quaint charm and possibly having an undesired effect on the building as a whole when seen as a whole. So it's always difficult when there's 2 units where they're not necessarily doing the work at the same time. So essentially that was that. So I will need a...
En français.
En français.
3.4, 602 Main. Donc, il s'agit d'une demande de permis pour des travaux de rénovation majeure. La recommandation du CCU est unanime à l'effet de refuser le PIA parce que les critères suivants sont non remplis, soit de respecter les caractéristiques propres à l'architecture du bâtiment ainsi que ses caractéristiques particulières et d'ensemble, de préserver le caractère architectural des bâtiments d'intérêt, d'assurer que les éléments architecturaux respectent le caractère architectural du bâtiment et d'assurer que les matériaux de revêtement extérieurs cadrent bien avec l'architecture du bâtiment et que leur nombre soit réduit au minimum. Donc, la résolution vise à refuser le PIA relatif à la demande de permis.
Merci. Do I have a proposer? Benoit Blais, seconded by Peter Mate. Sorry, there are two hands that went up. Are there any objections to this resolution? Please raise your hand. It is carried unanimously. I will have to pick up my speed. Item 3.5906 Main, so another SPAPE major renovation. This is a permit request for major renovation work where they are adding a sunroom to a house at the back of the house. And the Town Planning Advisory Committee unanimously recommended to approve, conditionally that the SPAPE there was a condition that was set where essentially there was on the rear a triangular glass section, actually not glass, but plexiglass, that seemed of dimensions that would require to be more than one single panel. It was over 8 feet. So the suggestion or the recommendation made by Town Planning Advisory Committee was that the reality of that, so whether it be a mullion separating in half or in 3, be presented to council at the time of our decision. So we have received that revision, and it will be with a vertical mullion in the middle. So at this point, this resolution is to approve the SPAPE of the request en français.
3.5-906 Main, il s'agit d'une demande de permis pour des travaux de rénovation majeurs. La recommandation du CCU était unanime pour approuver les plans conditionnellement et il y a un léger changement qui a été fait. Donc, la résolution vise à approuver le PIA relatif à la demande de permis au 906 Main.
So do I have a mover for this? Peter Mate, seconded by Darren Legault. Are there any objections to this resolution? Please raise your hand. There are none. It is carried unanimously. This should go faster. Awarding of contracts by mutual agreement. So this, I should have mentioned it at the beginning. Mark Gray will be recusing himself for this item as he has worked for one of the tender companies, or companies that tendered. So please note that he is recused. Item 3.6, awarding of contract by mutual agreement, branch collection and disposal of 2023, whereas a branch collection beginning May 23rd of 2023 is planned, whereas a call for tenders by invitation was issued by the Urban Planning Division head on April 11th of 2023 and on April 24th of 2023. The opening of tenders took place, so 2 companies. One was Émondage Gabriel Vaillancourt for the amount of $77,000 and Émondage Village for $35,200. Whereas the bid submitted by Émondage Village is not compliant, among other things, because of its significant price difference with the market. This resolution is to award to Émondage Gabriel Vaillancourt, the lowest conforming bidder, the contract for the branch collection for an amount of $77,000 before taxes. Est-ce qu'on peut expliquer légèrement qu'est-ce qui n'était pas conforme?
En fait, quand le prix d'une soumission est très loin de la réalité de ce qu'on s'attendait et du marché, ça peut être considéré comme une irrégularité majeure permettant de refuser. Et d'ailleurs, dans ce cas-ci, Émondage Village a réalisé qu'il avait soumissionné pas selon tous les critères qu'on avait mis, puis a écrit à la Ville pour demander de retirer son offre. Donc, dans des circonstances comme ça, on comprend que le contrat aurait pas, l'entrepreneur n'aurait pas honoré son prix dans le cadre du contrat.
Merci. So the person preparing this submittal or the tender realized of his own accord that he had made a mistake and not considered all the criteria that were in the tender and asked to be removed from this. Otherwise, he would have been stuck providing services that he himself wouldn't have had the means to provide. And there is a condition, I guess, in the law that says that if a town recognizes, because there's a big split, that there's probably an error or a problem and that it wouldn't be able to be honored, that we have the ability to not keep that tender. Ça va?
C'est plutôt si l'écart du marché est très marqué, un écart très marqué du marché, sans considération pour, on ne doit pas se pencher sur le fait est-ce qu'il y a risque ou quoi que ce soit. Là, on se penche plus sur notre évaluation, puis le marché, qu'est-ce que ça en dit comme écart.
All right, so it's more on the split with the market that signals to the town that there is probably an error in the understanding of the conditions in the contract. Ça va?
Oui.
On le fait en français?
Oui, j'y vais. 3.6, octroi de contrat de gré à gré pour la collecte et la disposition de branches. Donc, une collecte de branches est prévue de débuter le 23 mai prochain. Un appel d'offres sur invitation a été lancé et le 24 avril avait lieu l'ouverture des soumissions. Les soumissions que nous avons reçues sont celles de Émondage Gabriel Vaillancourt au montant de 77 000 $ et Émondage Village pour 35 200 $. Considérant que la soumission déposée par Émondage Village est non conforme, notamment en raison de son écart de prix marqué avec le marché, la résolution vise à octroyer à Émondage Gabriel Vaillancourt, le plus bas soumissionnaire conforme, le contrat de collecte et disposition de branche pour un montant de 77 000 $ avant taxes.
Merci. Do I have a proposer? Reed Thompson, seconded by Darren Legault. Are there any objections to this resolution? It is adopted by majority. Item 3.7, awarding of contract by mutual. Oh, yes. Please note that Mark It's teamwork, I tell you. Thank you. They knew I was going to forget. That's even what was funny. Item 3.7, awarding of contract by mutual agreements. This is for tree inspection services. Whereas the shortage of manpower in the field of urban planning, whereas a contract by mutual agreement was awarded to Solutions Alternatives Environnement, Inc. in January of 2023 for the loan of personnel for tree inspections, whereas the town wishes to extend the contract for the year of 2023 until December 31 of 2023. This resolution is to award the contract to Solutions Alternatives Environnement, Inc. for tree inspection services of tree cutting permit applications for 350 hours, representing an expense of $21,875 plus taxes and traveling expenses. So just to remind you that in our Environment and Urban Planning Department, we should have 6 employees, and presently we continue to have 2. So it is causing delays. I believe present response delay for permit applications is 6 weeks. And it's not looking good for finding employees rapidly. It's an issue that is throughout the region. And even today I found out that the regional planner has just given his notice at the region, so they have also complete shortage in that department, which is massive considering that we're going through this PMAD revision and we need that kind of expertise at the table. So it's a very difficult period for urban planning in general. So, en français.
3.7, octroi de contrat pour des services d'inspection d'arbres, donc considérant la pénurie de main-d'œuvre dans le domaine de l'urbanisme, considérant qu'un contrat de gré à gré a été octroyé à Solutions Alternatives Environnement, Inc. en janvier dernier pour un prêt de personnel pour effectuer les inspections d'arbres, considérant que la Ville désire prolonger le contrat pour l'année 2023 jusqu'au 31 décembre, la résolution vise à octroyer un contrat à Solutions Alternatives Environnement, Inc. pour des services d'inspection d'arbres dans le cadre des demandes de permis d'abattage d'arbres pour 350 heures, soit une dépense de 21 875 $ plus taxes et transports.
Merci. Do I have a mover? Darren Legault, seconded by Mark Gray. Sorry. Are there any objections to this resolution? Please raise your hands. I see none. It is carried unanimously. Okay, 3.8, tabling of the monthly report for permits issued. So this is something we do every month. So members of council, take note of the tabling of the monthly report for permits issued by the Urban Planning Department. Section 4. Approval of disbursements, April 20... en français?
Ah oui?
Celle-là, on vous la laissait.
Ah oui? J'aurais pu la lire, c'est vrai.
3.8, dépôt du rapport mensuel des permis émis en mars 2023. Donc, les membres du Conseil prennent acte du dépôt du rapport mensuel des permis émis au service de l'urbanisme.
Merci, Melissa. So now moving on to section 4, which is Administration and Finance. Item 4.1, approval of disbursements for the month of April of 2023. Whereas Council has examined the disbursements made and to be made for accounts payable as of April 20th, à payer du 20. Okay. This resolution is to approve the following disbursements, where the subtotal is $479,423.56, and the total for accounts paid is $629,855.24. This includes one payroll.
4.1, approbation des paiements pour avril 2023. Donc, il s'agit des comptes à payer en date du 20 avril et la résolution vise à approuver le paiement des comptes pour un sous-total de 479 423,56 à laquelle on ajoute une période de paye, ce qui monte à un total de 629 855,24.
Merci. Do I have a mover and a seconder? Reed Thompson, seconded by Mark Gray. I'm sorry, Mark. That's twice now. Martin, est-ce qu'on veut donner un petit suivi sur l'avancement des vérificateurs?
On n'a pas demandé si quelqu'un s'opposait.
Are there any objections to this resolution? There is none. It is carried unanimously. Pardon, désolé.
Oui, oui, effectivement. Je vais donner... ça travaille bien présentement, puis on devrait présenter au prochain conseil de ville aux citoyens les états financiers, fait qu'on rencontrait l'échéance du ministère, qui a permis cette année, encore là, à cause de la carence en employés, au lieu de... Le délai était du 15 mai, c'est au 15 juin. Puis, on va déposer les états financiers le 6. La propriétaire de la compagnie là, va venir présenter avec son adjointe les états financiers.
Merci beaucoup. So, I had asked Martin to give an update on our advancement with the verification of the annual statements, I guess, les états financiers. And so the ministry this year, because of the shortage of labor, has extended the period to middle of June, c'est juin, so June 15th. And so at the next council meeting, we will be submitting what are they called? The verified statements, and they will be presented by the professional who's worked on these, and she will be able to answer questions that you may have. The audited financial statements, thank you.
The audit.
The audit.
On l'a.
So the auditor will be presenting them. Thank you, Helen. Teamwork. All right, c'est ça. Item 4.2, this is a resolution providing special thanks regarding the major power outage related to the ice storm of April 5th and 6th of this year. Given the major power outage that occurred in the Vaudreuil-Soulanges region due to the ice storm of April 5th and 6th of 2023, whereas 189 calls were received and responded to by the fire department, and that these operations were conducted on 6 days during the Easter period, whereas the Public Works team had to respond to various emergency needs such as fallen branches and trees on public roads and the temporary connection of an emergency generator to supply potable water, whereas the major outage also affected the communication networks, thus complicating contact and information sharing, whereas the community center was open during 5 days as a shelter for those affected by the prolonged power outage so that everyone could warm up, recharge their electronic devices, and have a bite to eat. And whereas Council wishes to acknowledge the mobilization and efforts of all participants who demonstrated in these circumstances a strong team and community spirit. This resolution is to recognize the mobilization and sustained efforts of all of those involved in the emergency measures offered, to recognize the ongoing work of firefighters to ensure the safety of residents, to recognize the excellent management and coordination work of Ian Delgarno, Director of Public Works, who was assigned to replace the Director General during his absence, and to thank the municipal staff involved, whether it be the firefighters, the public works team, or the members of the administration, as well as the residents who volunteered, and to congratulate the members of the municipal organization for their reliability, dedication, and efficiency. To particularly thank Colette Garot, Steve Farrell, and Sylvia Maury for their generous involvement and initiative with the children and teenagers present at the community center during all of those days. To thank Tim Walsh, Lucy Walsh, and Jean Montpetit, who graciously provided a musical performance at the community center for the residents within. Thank you, Laura, for coming up with that idea and setting it up. It was really great. To thank the employees of the IGA des Yelles for their help during an extremely busy period. This, of course, wasn't in their plans either, but they were there and helped and made extra sandwiches for us, and were definitely very reliable. And to express our appreciation for the selflessness of everyone who has offered to help a neighbor or a community member, whether by lending a hand or checking in. So sincerely, thank you to all for making that period bearable for many and showing what Hudson is made of. Thank you. En français.
4.2. Remerciements dans le cadre de la panne d'électricité majeure liée au verglas du 5 et 6 avril 2023. Donc, considérant la panne majeure d'électricité survenue dans la région de Vaudreuil-Soulanges en raison du verglas les 5 et 6 avril dernier, considérant que 189 appels ont été reçus et traités par le service de la sécurité incendie et que ces opérations se sont étendues sur 6 jours en période pascale, considérant que l'équipe des travaux publics a dû répondre à divers besoins d'urgence et s'affairer entre autres aux branches et aux arbres tombés sur les voies publiques et au raccordement temporaire d'un générateur d'urgence pour fournir l'eau potable, considérant que la panne majeure touchait également les réseaux de communication, rendant difficiles les contacts et le partage d'informations, considérant que le centre communautaire a été ouvert pendant 5 jours à titre de lieu d'hébergement pour les personnes touchées par la panne, pour que tous puissent se réchauffer, recharger ses appareils électroniques et prendre une bouchée, considérant que le conseil municipal souhaite souligner la mobilisation et les efforts de tous les intervenants qui ont démontré dans ces circonstances un fort esprit d'équipe et de communauté. La résolution vise à reconnaître la mobilisation et les efforts soutenus déployés par tous ceux qui se sont impliqués dans les mesures d'urgence offertes, de reconnaître le travail ininterrompu des pompiers pour assurer la sécurité des citoyens, de reconnaître l'excellent travail de direction et de coordination d'Ian Delgarno, directeur des travaux publics, mandaté en remplacement du directeur général durant son absence, de remercier le personnel municipal impliqué, que ce soit les pompiers, l'équipe des travaux publics et les membres de l'administration, ainsi que les personnes qui se sont portées volontaires, de féliciter les membres de l'organisation municipale ayant démontré fiabilité, dévouement et efficacité, de remercier Colette Garot, Steve Farrell et Sylvia Maury pour leur généreuse implication et leur initiative auprès des enfants et des jeunes présents au centre communautaire, de remercier Tim Walsh, Lucy Walsh et Jean Montpetit qui ont gracieusement offert une prestation musicale au centre communautaire pour les citoyens de passage, de remercier les employés du IGA des Yelles pour leur aide pendant une période extrêmement achalandée et de souligner l'altruisme de tous et chacun qui ont offert de l'aide à un voisin ou à un membre de la communauté, que ce soit en donnant un coup de main ou en prenant des nouvelles.
Merci, Melissa. Thank you, Laura, for writing this resolution for us. Was it you? C'était toi?
Non.
Les deux. So together, thank you. You did a great job. Moved by Reed Thompson, seconded by Mark Gray. Are there any objections to this resolution? Please raise your hands. There are none. You want to add
Mrs. Mayor,
anything?
if I may?
Yep.
I'd like to take this opportunity to thank you for your hard work and leadership at such a critical period. It was much appreciated by those that were in attendance, and you really took it to heart, and I think you did a great job, and I just want to thank you. And Bob as well, because he was your crutch, and he did a lot of legwork for all of us.
Always my crutch, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Darren. That's very touching. Bon, alors, moving to section 5. On continue, ça va bien aller. Item 5.1, application, authorization, and issuance of tickets, designation update. So this is the title that we had modified from the agenda that was online. Whereas bylaw 761-2023 concerning active roads is submitted for adoption. No, it's not this one. Hein? Oui, c'est celui-là. Non, oui. C'est bon. Oui, oui. Okay.
Oui, oui.
Tu vois, j'en perds des bouts. Concerning active roads is submitted for adoption at this council meeting, and in order for the bylaw to be validly implemented, council must designate by resolution the persons authorized, whereas the designations for bylaw 722 RMH 450-2019 on nuisances must be revised to allow for enforcement by the fire department. And this resolution is to appoint the persons designated in Appendix A attached hereto as designated officers having jurisdiction for the enforcement of the bylaw.
5.1, autorisation d'application et d'émission de constats, mise à jour des désignations. Donc, considérant que le règlement 761-2023 relatif aux rues actives est soumis pour adoption à la présente séance de ce soir et que pour que son application puisse être valablement faite, le Conseil doit désigner par résolution les personnes autorisées pour l'appliquer. Considérant également que les désignations pour le règlement 722 sur les nuisances doit être révisées afin de permettre une application par le service des incendies, la résolution vise à nommer les personnes désignées à l'annexe A jointe aux présentes à titre d'officiers désignés pour l'application des règlements municipaux.
So it's two bylaws where the designation is being changed. I had in mind that it was just one. That's why I had a bit of an adjustment period. The bylaw on nuisances includes fires, for example. So we've been receiving quite a few comments from residents whose neighbors hold fires in the backyards, and it's creating un désagrément. So it's a nuisance, and asking us to be on the terrain and intervening when we can. So if the bylaw essentially frames that if the smoke comes into your house, we can act. But if it's just in your backyard, we don't necessarily have any parameters by which we can enforce it. And so please call 911, I believe is the number to call in the case where you feel that you're being inconvenienced by fire. And that will be triaged, and the person will probably be triaged to our fire department who will come and assess. So that's what that is about. Good? I'm looking at this side of the table because it's been happening more in their sector of town. All right. So we need a mover. Peter, not Peter.
Mark.
Mark, thank you. Mark. Yes, I'm tired.
Do that again.
Seconded by Reed Thompson. Are there any objections to this resolution? Please raise your hand. There are none. It is carried unanimously. 5.2, my favorite resolution every 6 months. This comes up at caucus. I think we're getting better at it. So the appointment of Pro Mayor from May 2023 for 6 months. I have asked again if Darren would take over or continue in this seat. He has accepted. We have also discussed in our working meetings that the next 2 shifts will be changed, and chances are, if they continue to accept and be available, that it will be, I believe we had said it in the order of, is it Reed, then Mark? Is that how we had done it?
Whatever.
I believe that's it.
Whatever works.
So please remind me if I get the order wrong again. But so once again, Darren Legault for a period of 6 months starting May 15th, and you will see that change. I've also, if we could add in our resolution that he be mandated to go to the MRC meetings in my absence because we need that resolution for the MRC to accept them in the council meeting.
Okay. You want it to be in tonight's resolution?
Please.
Okay.
Pour éviter d'en faire une autre.
Oui, hein. Okay.
C'est moi qui devais peut-être transmettre, puis je n'ai pas fait.
So, for example, Darren, at the end of this month, I won't be able to attend, but you will be here also in the kitchen, so you may have to make a few choices there. But anyway, you'll see the agenda, and we'll see if there's anything that needs. I also attend the caucuses, which are the week before, so I will be able to debate any point that is on the agenda. And typically, there is no specific vote. It's usually unanimous. It's just there's a presenter and a seconder, but that's the only thing. And we're 23 mayors, so each point is extremely well covered. It's not a big issue, and it would be my first meeting, I think, that I would be missing at the MRC. So I will need a mover.
En français.
Ah, en français. Bon.
5.2, nomination du maire suppléant à compter de mai 2023. Donc, la résolution vise à ce que le conseiller Darren Legault soit nommé maire suppléant pour une période de 6 mois à compter du 15 mai et également nommé pour remplacer la mairesse lors des séances à la MRC.
Merci beaucoup. Do I have a mover? So Reed Thompson, seconded by Peter. Oh, Benoit Blais. Thank you, Benoit. Sorry, Peter. I've said your name too many times tonight anyway. So are there any objections with this resolution? Please raise your hand. There is none. It is carried unanimously. Item 5.3, tabling of minutes of correction for bylaw 728.2-2023. In accordance with section 92.1 of the Cities and Towns Act, the town clerk is tabling the minutes of correction concerning bylaw 728.2-2023. Will you give us a brief?
Oui. Yes. Okay. 5.3, dépôt du procès-verbal de correction concernant le règlement 528.2-2023. Donc, conformément à l'article 92.1 de la loi sur les cités et villes, je procède au dépôt du procès-verbal de correction qui visait le règlement 728.2. Ce règlement avait été adopté pour... c'est le règlement sur la délégation de pouvoir qui établit à l'intérieur de l'administration les gestionnaires qu'est-ce qu'ils ont comme seuil de dépenses. On avait fait une modification au règlement pour ajuster les titres au nouvel organigramme. Mais quand on fait une correction à un règlement, un amendement, la rédaction doit être faite de façon à ne pas écraser toute autre partie du règlement. Donc, le PV de correction est juste venu rajouter 2 petits mots pour dire que c'était le tableau qui était changé et non pas l'article en entier.
Je comprends. So, if I am to translate, this bylaw was for the delegation of powers where we had made a correction. So this bylaw is setting the caps on what different functionaries or department heads are allowed to spend without going to resolution. And we had made the correction when it was previously brought to council on changing the titles to match the changes that we had made to the organizational chart. However, whenever we amend or make a modification to a bylaw, it is intended not to replace the full bylaw. So we're adding here 2 words to say what was changed is the table and not the rest of the bylaw. Exactly. Correct? Good. Yeah. All right. So it's just a tabling, just to let you know essentially what that is. Section 6, Human Resources. So item 6.1, this is for the hiring of this year's summer students. Whereas Employment and Social Development Canada, ESDC, has a funding program for summer employment. Whereas the application was granted for 5 positions for a total of 8,400 hours. This resolution is to authorize the hiring of the following community pool staff for the upcoming summer season. There's a few names, so I'm going to read them. Chloe Gauthier, Kaylee Sheehan, Malcolm Farkas, Nicholas McCracken, Rudiger Farkas, Emma Garcia, Chloe Boucher, Emily Roger, Ella Gauthier, Anna Dusty, Griffin Farkas, Lena Valderrama, Maria Valderrama, Morgan Gauthier, Gabrielle Pomerleau, Kyle Vergnano McRae, I'm sorry if I'm missaying your name, Luca Brunetti, Charles, without an S, Charles Gonel, Laila Uwati, Cassandra Johnson, Kaiden Higgins, Zoe Nelson, and to authorize the hiring of Public Works employees Function 206, Curtis Driver, Dylan Boucher, Tyler Bruno, Christophe Michaud.
6.1, embauche étudiant pour l'été 2023. Donc, Emploi et développement social du Canada a un programme de financement pour les emplois d'été et pour la Ville, notre demande a été accordée pour 5 postes pour un total de 1400 heures. Donc, la résolution vise à autoriser l'embauche du personnel de la piscine communautaire que Mme la mairesse vient de lire et que je n'énumérerai pas à nouveau, et d'autoriser l'embauche du personnel des travaux publics à la fonction 206 également, les 4 candidats mentionnés.
Merci beaucoup, Melissa. That's very artfully done. It's very clever. All right, moved by Darren Legault, seconded by Mark Gray. Hey, look, I got it. Are there any objections to this resolution? Please raise your hand. There are none. It is carried unanimously. Item 6.2, interim town clerk, maternity leave replacement. The knitting's coming along, I promise you. Slowly, but it's coming along. Whereas the town clerk will be on maternity leave on or about June 28th of 2023, whereas the town wishes to retain the services of a temporary employee as interim town clerk, this resolution is to appoint Mrs. Susan McKercher as acting town clerk for a fixed term commencing on or about June 26th, 2023 and ending upon the return of town clerk Melissa Legault from maternity leave. So this is an excellent choice, and what is nice is she knows the town, she's already sat in that position, and those two know each other, trust each other, and the transfer of files will be efficient. As I've noted, there's about 2 days approximately, depending on how you feel towards the end, but thank you.
Et elle va venir quelques jours au courant du mois de juin.
Ah,
elle ne sera pas en fonction, mais elle va venir.
No way. Excellent.
Oui. Merci. 6.2, greffière par intérim, remplacement d'un congé de maternité. Donc, considérant que la greffière, moi-même, débutera un congé de maternité ouvert le 28 juin 2023, considérant que la Ville désire retenir les services d'une employée temporaire à titre de greffière par intérim, la résolution vise à nommer Mme Susan McKercher à titre de greffière par intérim pour une durée déterminée débutant ouvert le 26 juin 2023 et se terminant au retour du congé de maternité, à mon retour de congé de maternité.
Oui,
en fait.
On a hâte, déjà. Do I have a mover? Darren Legault, seconded by Reed Thompson. Is there any objection to the resolution? Do you want to raise your hands? No, there are none. It is carried unanimously. I think was the question, should we not approve her leaving? Yes. Are you ready to look after the baby? Are you ready to look after the baby? I think that's what you offered, right? Yes. This came up at caucus. All right, so moving to item 6.3, extension of the interim director general's mandate, our dear Martin Houd, whereas the position is still without a permanent incumbent, whereas the contract for a fixed term of employee 1015 has come to its term on April 30th of 2023, whereas a hiring is in progress and will require coaching for successful integration. This resolution is to extend the term of the employment of employee 1015 on the same terms and conditions as the current employment contract for an additional 2 months.
6.3, prolongation du mandat du directeur général par intérim. Donc, considérant que le poste de directeur général est toujours dépourvu d'un titulaire permanent, que le contrat à durée déterminée du directeur par intérim est venu à échéance le 30 avril dernier, considérant qu'une embauche pour le poste est en cours, mais que celle-ci nécessitera un coaching pour une intégration intégration à succès. La résolution vise à prolonger le contrat de travail aux mêmes modalités du contrat de travail actuel pour une durée supplémentaire de 2 mois.
Merci. And to clarify or to add, in 2 months' time, we will come back. We need to work on our next steps with Martin, where hopefully he will continue with us as mentor to council and mayor, and if we see the necessity to continue with other special projects, which he handles extremely well. He's been very successful in continuing positive steps forward with the Legion, for example, and other files that are on our table. So we would like to be able to keep him by our side for as long as we possibly can. We've been considering refusing or changing the term of this resolution, but we also want to respect your limitations. So, merci beaucoup, Martin. A proposer? Oui, en français, on l'a fait, hein? On l'a fait en français.
Oui.
Proposer. Reed Thompson, seconded by Peter May. Are there any objections to this resolution? Are you tempted, Doug?
Faites-toi plaisir, Doug.
With no vacation. Une résolution, pas de vacances.
So you can tell we really appreciate him, and we're very fortunate to have him by our side. So there are no objections. It is carried unanimously. Félicitations, Monsieur Hood, et c'est un plaisir de continuer avec vous.
Plaisir partagé.
Merci.
Avec vous tous, d'ailleurs.
Oui, oui. Sauf que?
Pas de vacances.
Bon. Item 6.4. Hiring of the Assistant Director General, whereas a permanent incumbent is sought for the position of Director General, whereas the selection process, evaluation, and interview of candidates, whereas all the aptitude and competency tests conducted by an organizational psychologist, that the candidates' results correspond to the profile sought and given the recommendations made to the town, whereas in order to ensure the success of the probation period, it was mutually agreed to integrate the candidate in the position of Assistant Director General for a period of 6 months under the coaching of the Interim Director General, and that following this 6-month period, the candidate will be eligible for the position of Director General. This resolution is to hire Mrs. Marie-Jacinthe Roberge as Assistant Director General, a full-time management position, and that the hiring of Mrs. Marie-Jacinthe Roberge be effective as of May 29th of 2023.
6.4, embauche directrice générale adjointe. Considérant la recherche d'un titulaire permanent à la direction générale, considérant le processus de sélection, d'évaluation et d'entrevue, considérant les tests d'aptitude et de compétences faits auprès d'une psychologue organisationnelle, que les résultats de la candidate correspondent au profil recherché et vu les recommandations faites à la Ville, considérant que pour assurer un succès à la période de probation, il a été convenu d'intégrer la candidate au poste de directrice générale adjointe pour une période de 6 mois sous le coaching du directeur général par intérim et que suite à cette période de 6 mois, la candidate pourra accéder au poste de directrice générale. La résolution vise à embaucher Mme Marie-Jacinthe Roberge au titre de directrice générale adjointe, poste-cadre à temps plein, et que l'embauche soit effective dès le 29 mai 2023.
Merci beaucoup. Are there any objections to this resolution? Please raise your hands. There are none. It is carried unanimously. Alors, félicitations et bienvenue, Marie-Jacinthe. Ça va être un plaisir de travailler avec toi. Marie-Jacinthe really is a warm and caring and determined person, and I trust, fully trust, that with Martin by her side, the transition will be smooth and successful. So this is an excellent, I think Martin has come to present a process and an approach that I think really fits Hudson at this point, and considering her background as well, the fit with that culture and that love of place and development of our area, I think that there's a very interesting fit there, and I look forward to working with her. All right. Item 6.5, disciplinary measures, suspension without pay, whereas the recommendation of the Human Resources Department and the Director General, whereas the reasons invoked in the disciplinary measures letter, this resolution is to approve the suspension without pay of employee 733 and to authorize the mayor to sign the disciplinary measures letter.
6.5, mesures disciplinaires, suspension sans solde. Considérant la recommandation formulée par le service des ressources humaines et le directeur général, considérant les motifs invoqués au sein de la lettre énonçant la mesure disciplinaire, la résolution vise à approuver la suspension sans solde de l'employé 733 et d'autoriser la mairesse à signer la dite lettre de mesure disciplinaire.
Merci beaucoup. Mover. Darren Legault, seconded by Mark Gray. Are there any objections with this resolution? There are none. It is carried unanimously. Section 7, Culture and Recreation. 7.1, renewal of appointments for the municipality Amis des Aînés, so MADA. Whereas a MADA Policy Oversight Committee was created by a resolution in 2021, on December 6th of 2021, and that its members serve a period of 1 year from the date of their appointment. This resolution is to renew the mandate of the following individuals until April 30th of 2024. So Benoit Blais, Councillor responsible for Family Matters, and Laura McCaffrey, representative of the town administration, and to appoint our new Director of Culture and Recreation, Elizabeth Wainwright, to the committee until the same date, and to appoint Barbara Robinson, who was previously a councillor and who was instrumental in setting up MADA. She will be named a resource person.
7.1, renouvellement des nominations au sein du comité MADA. Considérant qu'un comité de suivi MADA a été créé en décembre 2021 et que ses membres ont un mandat d'1 an à compter de la date de leur nomination, la résolution vise à renouveler le mandat des personnes suivantes jusqu'au 30 avril 2024. Donc, Benoit Blais, conseiller responsable des questions familiales, et Laura McCaffrey, représentante de l'administration municipale. Également de nommer Elizabeth Wainwright, directrice des cultures et des loisirs, encore une fois jusqu'au 30 avril, et de nommer Barbara Robinson à titre de personne ressource du comité.
Merci. This makes me think, Laura, there were two people who were working on the policy that were asking to have updates on where that was. So Sandy Rasico-Day and Susan Bernardsky were curious and possibly interested in continuing to provide support and others. So, sorry. It came up on Sunday morning, so yesterday morning. So here we are. All right, do I have a mover for this? Mada? Mover? You could. It's okay. Peter Mate, and seconded by Darren Legault. You're right. That's a bit funny. No, you're right. Are there any objections to this? Oh, yeah, okay. It is carried unanimously. Item 7.2, Jack Layton Park activity, Shakespeare by the Lake. Whereas Shakespeare by the Lake will take place the weekends of July 20th to 23rd and July 27th to 30th, 2023. This resolution is to authorize the use of Jack Layton Park for the Shakespeare by the Lake production from those dates. So there's two sets there, provided the park remains accessible to the public and that the production is free and open to the public, and to authorize the use of Jack Layton Park as a rehearsal space 1 evening a week until the July 20th opening night. So I'm very grateful to the Players Club who met with the neighbor of Jack Layton Park, who has been inconvenienced in the past and had asked that he be consulted on dates and rehearsal times. This took place, and so this is their coming to an agreement and an understanding, and I saw that neighbor yesterday and he thanked us for having gone through that. So thank you on that. En français.
7.2, activité dans le parc Jack Layton, Shakespeare by the Lake. Donc, cette activité aura lieu les fins de semaine du 20 au 23 juillet et du 27 au 30 juillet prochain. Donc, la résolution vise à autoriser l'utilisation du parc Jack Layton pour la production Shakespeare by the Lake à ces dates, à condition que le parc reste accessible au public et que la production soit gratuite. Et permet également d'utiliser le parc comme lieu de répétition un soir par semaine jusqu'à la soirée d'ouverture du 20 juillet.
Merci beaucoup. Proposer. Reed Thompson, seconded. Peter Mate. Are there any objections to this resolution? Please raise your hands. There are none. It is carried unanimously. Item 7.3, B-Day, Dandelion Challenge. Whereas it is recognized by the scientific community that allowing dandelions to bloom in the spring is a concrete and vital action for pollinators. Dandelions are among the first flowers to bloom and therefore represent an important source of food for pollen and nectar for their survival after the winter period. This resolution is to join the Quebec-wide Dandelion Challenge for its third consecutive year. En français.
7.3, Journée mondiale des abeilles, défi pissenlit, considérant qu'il est reconnu par la communauté scientifique que de laisser fleurir les pissenlits au printemps est une action concrète et vitale pour les pollinisateurs, les pissenlits étant parmi les premières fleurs à éclore et représentent donc une source de nourriture. Le pollen et le nectar sont une source importante pour la survie des abeilles après la période hivernale. Donc, la résolution vise à adhérer au défi pissenlit, qui est à sa 3e édition à l'échelle du Québec.
Merci beaucoup. Proposer, Mark Gray, seconded, Peter Mate. Are there any objections to this resolution? Please raise your hand. There are none. It is carried unanimously. Item 7.4, Jack Layton Park activity, Illum Yoga Festival, whereas the Illum Yoga Festival will take place on July 15th and 16th of 2023, whereas the festival highlights Hudson, brings in many yoga enthusiasts from outside the area, and is now in its 6th edition. This resolution is to authorize the use of Jack Layton Park by Illum Festival the weekend of July 15th and 16th, 2023, provided the park remains accessible to the public and that workshops are free and open to the public.
7.4, activité dans le parc Jack Layton pour le festival de yoga Illum. Le festival aura lieu les 15 et 16 juillet 2023. C'est un festival qui met en valeur Hudson, qui fait venir de nombreux amateurs de yoga de l'extérieur de la région et il en est maintenant à sa 6e édition. Donc, la résolution vise à autoriser l'utilisation du parc Jack Layton par le festival Illum la fin de semaine du 15-16 juillet, à condition que le parc demeure accessible au public et que les ateliers soient gratuits.
Et je comprends que c'est les ateliers qui sont donnés dans le parc et non les autres ateliers. So these are specific to the activities in the park. Be free, correct?
Ah, oui.
Oui?
Oui.
Anyway, so obviously there is a cost associated to attending the festival, but the activities in the park are intended to be free. Mover? Peter Mate, seconded. Reader Thompson. Reed Thompson, are there any objections to this resolution? Please raise your hand. There are none. It is carried unanimously. Section 8, Public Works, authorization to pay telephone system. Whereas Resolution R 2022-08-2023, -223, by which the town awarded a contract by mutual agreement for the replacement and installation of a new telephone system, whereas several modifications were required to resolve issues in 2 municipal buildings. This resolution is to approve the payment of an amount of $9,579.94 before taxes to ITID Solutions, Inc. for the additional work required. So ITID Solutions, Inc. are standard provider for any IT work, and so I suppose that they were asked to come and help solve this new, the issues that we were having with this new phone system.
8.1, autorisation de paiement pour le système de téléphonie Donc, en 2022, la Ville a octroyé un contrat de gré à gré par résolution pour le remplacement et l'installation d'un nouveau système de téléphonie. Plusieurs modifications ont été nécessaires pour résoudre des difficultés dans 2 bâtiments municipaux. Donc, la résolution vise à approuver le paiement d'un montant de 9 579,94 avant taxe à Solutions IT pour les travaux supplémentaires.
Merci. Mover? Reed Thompson, seconded by Peter Mate. Are there any objections with this resolution? Please raise your hands. There are none. It is carried unanimously. Section 9, Public Safety. 9.1, Tabling of 2022 Fire Department's Activities Report. So when we table these reports, these become accessible through a request for information. I do highly recommend, if you want to see the amazing work that our fire department does every year, to ask for it. We could peut-être même le mettre en ligne, je sais pas. Could we put it on our website? Yeah, so we'll do that. We'll put that on, because it gives a really great overview of all the work and how important they are.
We had asked for a translation.
We had asked? It was French only?
Sorry?
Yeah. Oui? Okay. We had asked for a compressed version because it's whatever.
On va mettre la version
abrégée.
Abrégée, le 4 ou 5 pages, je l'ai regardé aujourd'hui.
Right, so it's coming, so we've asked for a reduced sized, so a compressed version because it's multiple pages, I forget how many, let's say 20. So just to compress it to 3 would be nice, and to have it available in both languages. All right.
Thank you.
Teamwork, thank you. Moving on to
Je vais y aller en français.
En français, vas-y,
9.1, dépôt du rapport des activités 2022 du service des incendies. Donc, les membres du conseil prennent acte du dépôt du rapport annuel des activités tenues en 2022 par le service des incendies de la Ville de Hudson.
Merci. Yeah. Daniel and his team, so Daniel Leblanc and his team are doing really great work. So thank you, Danielle, and to your team. Moving on to the almost last section, but it is the one with content, so bylaws. This 10.1 is for the adoption of bylaw 753.1-2022 and the amendment to this original bylaw of 753-2022 to support the sewer connection assistant program. Whereas a notice of motion of this bylaw was given at the regular meeting of the Municipal Council held on November 7th of 2022, whereas the purpose of this bylaw is to make changes to the terms and conditions of the program, including funding and requirements to allow more flexibility and accessibility to the program. Whereas the proposed bylaw tabled on November 7th of 2022 was amended as follows, and there were 6 amendments. Number 1, addition of an article modifying the preamble to reflect the fact that the program will not be financed via a loan bylaw. So instead, we're using funds and putting them in a reserved fund for this purpose. It simplifies administratively our work. Modification to section 6.1 text with regards to the disbursement of the financial assistance. The third amendment is modification to section 8 text with regards to financial assistance rate and withdrawal of the mention of a reimbursement by special tax. Fourth amendment is modification to section 9 text with regards to reimbursement terms. The fifth is addition of a date at which the registration ends, and the last one is withdrawal of the prescribed form. So essentially, this is to be able to transfer from the original model we thought would be through a loan bylaw, where now we have the funds. We're just going to be assigning the funds for this purpose. I believe to date, we only have 8 people who are interested in this service, but it's moving the dial forward on improving connections and adding people to the network. So this resolution is to adopt the amendments to the bylaw that support the sewer connection assistance program. And thank you, Steve, for your recommendations. We will continue to work in this sense. En français.
10.1, adoption du règlement 753.1, qui est un amendement au règlement 753 relatif au programme d'aide au raccordement aux réseau d'égouts. Un avis de motion pour le présent règlement a été donné à la séance du 7 novembre 2022. Considérant que ce règlement vise à apporter des modifications aux modalités du programme, notamment quant au mode de financement et aux exigences afin de permettre plus de flexibilité et de faciliter l'accessibilité au programme. Le projet de règlement qui était déposé le 7 novembre s'est vu modifié de la façon suivante, donc par l'ajout au projet d'un article qui modifie le préambule du règlement original pour refléter le fait que le programme ne sera pas financé par un règlement d'emprunt finalement, mais bien à l'interne. Modification du nouveau libellé de l'article 6.1 qui était concernant le versement de l'aide financière. Modification du nouveau libellé de l'article 8, notamment au sujet du taux auquel porte intérêt l'aide financière et on retire la mention d'un remboursement via une taxe spéciale. Modification aussi du nouveau libellé de l'article 9 qui vise le terme de remboursement. On ajoute une date à laquelle prend fin la période d'inscription. Puis, on est venu mentionner que le formulaire est retiré du règlement juste pour que, côté administratif, ce soit plus facile de faire des modifications, de l'adapter. Donc, la résolution vise à adopter le règlement 753.1, qui est un amendement au règlement 753.
Merci beaucoup, Melissa. I need a mover. Darren Legault, seconded by Reed Thompson. Are there any objections to this resolution? Please raise your hand. There are none. It is carried unanimously. Item 10.2, Adoption Bylaw 761-2023 concerning active roads. Do you want to read that one?
Sure.
Yeah.
Whereas notice of motion by of this bylaw was given at the regular meeting of the Municipal Council held on April 3rd, 2023. Whereas there has been no changes to the proposed bylaw tabled on April 3rd, 2023, whereas the purpose of this bylaw is to establish and oversee the Active Roads project, which consists of designating certain active roads to encourage slow driving due to the presence of walkers, cyclists, children, and to authorize free play on some of these streets while ensuring the safety of participants. This resolution is to adopt bylaw 761-2023 concerning active roads.
Can you give a brief on how this came about and how does one apply for an active road?
Yes, so it came up during the circulation committee, and it was something that was encouraged by the SQ to encourage citizen participation in helping, I guess, control a little bit of the perceived speeding issues that we see in town. So what an active road is, it's essentially, it's a designated section of a road. There are rules as to what can and cannot be designated an active road. And essentially what it does is it opens up free play zones, so it actually kind of, I guess, legalizes kids to be able to go out and play on the road while making sure that there are no obstructions or impediments in place that could block the flow of traffic moving up and down it. It will lower the speed limit of that section of the road to 30 kilometers an hour from 40. And the way to apply for it is to start a petition with residents on your street and bring it to the town. And if there's enough buy-in on the street, then the street will be designated an active road with signage indicating that it is an active road and also designated a free play zone.
Thank you. And what we did in the earlier resolution was to designate the people in charge of légiférer or whatever to apply it is the fire department. Correct?
No, it's the public works and l'urbaniste, urban planning.
Okay.
But it was the nuisance bylaw.
Right. There was a fire department.
Yes,
all right.
fire department.
Thank you for clarifying.
No
so
problem.
there, that gives you a bit of a portrait. Thank you. En français.
10.2. Adoption du règlement 761-2023 relatif aux rues actives. Donc, un avis de motion avait été donné à la dernière séance du 3 avril dernier. Le présent règlement ne comporte aucune modification avec le projet qui était déposé à ce moment-là. Et le règlement a pour objet d'établir et d'encadrer le projet rue active qui consiste à désigner certaines rues comme telles pour favoriser une conduite lente vu la présence de marcheurs, de cyclistes ou d'enfants sur ces rues-là et à autoriser les jeux libres dans certaines de ces portions de rue tout en s'assurant de la sécurité des participants. Donc, la résolution vise à adopter le règlement 761 relatif aux rues actives.
Merci. Does the Circulation Committee want to move in second? So Reed Thompson moves, seconded by Benoit Blais. Are there any objections to this resolution? Please raise your hands. There are none. It is carried unanimously. All right. New business? Any items? No? Second question period. Oui. I made you wait till 10.
Tracy Gallagher, I live on Bellevue over in Como. I have been coming to these meetings for decades, haven't been recently, but I did want to finish this meeting on a really positive note because I think this council in particular, I've seen and I've heard a lot of you doing things beyond your administrative responsibilities, which I think a lot of people forget about. Not many people would want to take this on. And I've sat with some of you in special meetings, in informal meetings. I've watched you at different events. I've read all kinds of information that's coming out much more accessibly and regularly from the council, from the town. And I know you're struggling with, lack of numbers and personnel. But I wanted to say that my circles, I hear a lot of positive things. It doesn't always come to you. I know that the Facebook stuff can. I've seen that stuff, and I just step away, and I feel for you. So I wanted to end this by saying, I need some water. That what you're doing is really good. It's very, very much appreciated, and the extra that you're going is noticed.
Thank you.
So, good on you.
I really appreciate it. Thank you, thank you. Thank you, Tracy. Is there a question online?
Yeah, I have a question from Administrator.
Administrator, please prendre la parole, please.
Sorry, it's Alex Potter from 602 Main Road. I'm a first-time attendee here, but I'm kind of curious. I've spoken informally with Mark, as along the road here. And I'm just kind of curious whether or not the extension of the sewer system is on the town's radar for the people, on Birch Hill and Brisbane and Mount Victoria, all the way along to Crescent.
It certainly is on our radar. We are expecting to have an exchange with our directors on what is the financial portrait of that, because although we have the hemisphere report on the state of the sewage situation in the Birch Hill, Brisbane, and other parts of town as well, we see the urgency of the situation in certain sectors, and but we also know that the actual costs that need to be shared with the sectors that are being extended will be significant. So we need to get those numbers clear before we can present them to the public, but we will, it's certainly been on my tracking list for a while, and we are getting there. It's one of the special projects that I need Martin to stay with us for, to help us untangle it. So here, I've just started that list that we will... But yes, it is on our radar. I know that I'm making light of something that is very important, but yes, I promise you.
Yeah, so I mean, again, I just wanted to represent that I would much rather invest my money in the sewer than in a new septic system. Mm-hmm. So that's, that's what I want to get kind of out there, that, I think it would be beneficial for all of the people in our area, mm-hmm. Rather than continuing to, pay their whatever $400 every 2 years to have their septic tank, mm-hmm. Emptied, and their contracts and that sort of stuff, and the prospective replacement costs of a septic system, mm-hmm. That would be better applied to, the sewer system than, to individual, kind of taking action on their particular property. So that's the only thing.
Once the numbers come out, some may feel differently about that, but let's at least get the data so that we can explain to you why it's not as easy as it seems. And anyway, I look forward to that conversation, and I hope it will happen within the next few months. Again, juillet? C'est sur la liste. So it's on the list, and it's getting closer.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
June.
Back again. This is regarding the active roads bylaw thing. So would you define Bellevue as an active road?
No.
Thank you. Main road?
Which road?
Main road?
Main? No.
Okay, so that was, I needed clarification.
Yeah, no, basically, I'll tell you really quickly what the qualifications are, just to make it really clear. It is a, if the following conditions are met, site is located on a public roadway, it is not adjacent to a commercial property or a school zone, or its circulation flow does not exceed 500 vehicles per day.
Thank you.
You find that under section 4 on the second page of the bylaw. I believe there's copies at the front.
I have it at my chair.
No, thank you. That's very efficient.
And the other question I had is regarding the lot that I've been concerned about ever since the trees were cut. I stop by regularly to check it out, and I spoke to the excavator one day, and all the fill that's being brought in apparently is to fill in the foundation that will be dug. But my question is, how do they expect to dig a foundation into the water table? Because where their posts are, they pointed out the 100-year flood zone posts that were not yet flooded, but I'm sure today they are. So how can they possibly build a foundation? They're saying that they're not going to go into the flood zone, but there's nowhere to put a house there.
C'est la propriété. It's the lot that is in the bend on Main Road on the lakeside in that steep slope. And you've seen some trees get cut down, and there's been questions in the last 2 months on this, on this side of Main. And what I had heard is that we were doing tight inspections on those, so going on a regular basis and making sure that it is
Can we make sure that that inspection is being done on a regular basis? Because if you stop and you look down, and I've seen many people stop there taking pictures, like our community is very concerned about the building that's proposed for that lot. And the excavator even told me it's not the owner of the property that's going to live there. Like he's just basically wanting to build a house and move on. And that was why my previous question about creating the bylaw for a setback from the road, because if you go and you stand there and you look, it doesn't make any sense. It's like they're filling in, and you had even told me it was defined as a landslide zone. And the fill that's there, they brought in to fill into the foundation once the foundation is built. But
I don't think I said it was a landslide area, but it is a steep slope, and it has to follow very strict regulations.
Yeah, but are those regulations being followed is my
So I will ask that we confirm and have our inspector go, and that he report back on that.
They have to depose an engineer.
But that was explained to you, right? That in those situations of steep slope, they are required to have engineering plans that are stamped by a certified or recognized engineer. And what we need to make sure is that the actual limits of what we are responsible for are being respected. So if you could.
And what the excavator told me, he was just following instructions. Like he agreed with my sentiments. Like, this is where they're proposing to put the house, but it doesn't make any sense. Like it's in midair right now. So
well, it's probably going to be on stilts or something.
No, apparently they're pouring a foundation. They're digging a foundation, and we had previously discussed it at a Como district meeting. You know, supposing that it would probably be on, you know, like pylons or something, but that doesn't seem to be. Because that's why they brought in all the fill that they've deposited there. It's to use to fill in. So if we could just keep a close eye on that.
Yeah, thank you.
On va faire un suivi demain.
Oui.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Carol Ann Mills.
Hello, Carol Ann.
Hi again. Just very quickly, I was remiss earlier when I mentioned Earth Week and everything that Hudson has been up to, and I should have given kudos as well to Darren Legault for his cooperation and participation throughout all of the Facebook entries and getting out there and doing work, and certainly being encouraging to all of the volunteers who had gone out and done their part. So thank you, Darren.
Thank you very much.
Pleasure. And can I just ask for a quick clarification on your dandelion challenge? Does that, I do follow a no mow May, as do some of the neighbors here. Mm-hmm. Is that something Hudson is looking at participating in or not participating in?
The dandelion challenge? We just adopted.
No mow May.
No mow in May. I don't know. Environment Committee, what do you think?
Yeah, it's essentially what it is no mow May, just allowing your dandelions to blossom for bees to have lots of nectar to pick up.
Does that answer your question?
No, I'm wondering if Hudson then will also participate in that, in which case our green space will be allowed to.
Oh, you mean if the town will not mow its public spaces? Is that what you mean?
Yes, sorry.
Si on le veut, est-ce qu'on le veut? How do we feel?
On pourrait faire
Everyone?
une recommandation. Oui.
We will certainly ask the... Il n'est pas directeur, hein, Gaëtan? Directeur des espaces verts? Il est quoi? C'est un directeur? Oui, il est directeur.
Je vais parler au directeur, mais il y a une longueur maximum à un moment donné dans les passes.
Right. If it gets to be too long, then they have to sort of go with different machinery. It gets a little more complex. But thank you, Caroline. That's a good point. It will be raised with the department.
Great. Thank you so much.
Yes, June.
Okay, I have a response to that, being in the landscaping business. Mm-hmm. It all depends on the season and the amount of moisture we have, and I think that for some properties that is not really a feasible.
It's going to make it hard to then catch up with.
It's very, very hard,
afterwards.
And for people that are paying for a lawn care service, they're going to be, you know, really, it's not going to be practical for them to be, they're going to have to mow it 2 or 3 times to be able to do it properly. Mm-hmm. And the dandelions come back anyway, so I don't think it's a big issue, because even though you mow your lawn 1 week, they're back in like 3 days. Mm-hmm. So no mow for an entire month is pretty...
Well, especially if the month is rainy or warm.
Yeah, exactly.
So then everything grows much faster. But
yeah.
That's a good point. Well,
and just over the past few days, you can notice how everything turned really green. Mm-hmm. It's grown a lot. And
the peonies.
Yeah, well, everything is just taking off. So I think for a full month is too long a period to go.
Thank you, June. Does that give you any insight, Caroline? She's gone. She's gone. All right. Any more questions?
You have got Jim Duff.
Yes, Jim. I have the info.
Yes, good evening. 3.1, 498 Main, in council in rejecting the developer's appeal of the demolition committee's decision. What outcome does council hope to achieve?
The outcome I expect to achieve is to signal that our local heritage is of value and that there's ways of repurposing lots and to continue to develop or redevelop in a respectful manner of our local quality and heritage. And I think that that is a prerogative that has been given to councils in the recent change in the law on cultural heritage, and we are exercising our rights.
Now, if I can follow up on that, the developer is going to seek an injunction. How much is the town prepared or is earmarked or put aside for fighting that challenge? Because as we both know, injunctions are incredibly expensive, probably the most expensive legal procedure you can undertake. How far are we going to go in fighting this? Because you'll remember 62 Main, the Torrance Cottage. that went all the way up to the Cour d'appel and cost the town well in excess of $200,000.
I think that property in that situation was quite different from the one that we have here. I believe there was a procedural issue with that one. It is a case study that is brought up in school, but the one that we have now, we're fully within our rights, and it is presently being, how do you say, defended in court, the 498 main request for an injunction, and I would like to see that one through.
So I guess, again, the question is, how far do we go? How far do we go with that?
At this point, we haven't found a necessity to put a ceiling on it.
Okay. One other question, if I may. In your comments in response to June Penny's question, in the first question period, you said, and I have them in my notes here, a freeze might be coming down next month. Now, that infers to me that you're looking at an RCI, a townwide RCI, for all development procedures.
All options are open, Jim.
What's that mean?
It may or it may not happen. At this point, it is really a reflection on the next steps. We haven't had a chance to talk about this yet, as the information, the readiness of our department to take on this work, we're just getting there. The first step was to hire the Director of Culture and Recreation in order to repatrier, so to bring Etienne back full-time in urban planning, because we have the completion of the RCI for the protection of natural areas, but also because we know that it's time for Hudson to revamp and to redo its master plan and all associated bylaws. So we will do it properly. Depending on the schedule and the pressures that we're already feeling, it is something that I'm considering is bringing a strategy of putting a second freeze. We had talked about putting one last year for heritage specifically, but considering that we are running behind on that schedule, there may have to be a different option. But again, all options are open. I don't have one that I prefer over another. And I also think that une planification de secteur détaillé, so that is a PPU, un plan particulier d'urbanisme, for a very specific sector would be an interesting and valuable tool. So again, I will be exchanging on this with the department this week, and I will have more to report on in following meetings.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Now, as I am wont to do, if there's no other questions, I had a long list of questions that I received from Trevor Smith a few months ago, and I was going through two of them a meeting and had forgotten a couple of meetings, so I'm just going to do two. So here's question number 7. Can you please explain how citizens can communicate concerns and suggestions and otherwise access these committees? So I think the best way to bring concern suggestions is to come to council meetings online or in person, send emails, contact your district councillor, or you can come and see me at Halcrow on the first Saturday or the Saturday following the council meeting and bring your concerns or suggestions. With regards to committees, most of the time, the candidacy period is posted publicly. Sometimes I will go specifically to different people if I'm looking to create a more diverse group, as I did with the end of the Cultural Committee. But there will be other occasions and opportunities to sit on committees. So number 8, a large part of the council time is spent on considering requests for development and exceptions. For SPAPE requests, so these are the site planning, architectural and integration plans. These are the ones that go to council. So for these requests, bylaw 571 provides criteria for deliberation, but for minor derogations, there are no actual criteria mentioned in bylaw 530. It contains no actual criteria, and the handling of the deliberation is often quite subjective. It is possible to provide the criteria for considering minor derogations exceptions that are currently used by TPAC and council in deciding these requests and include these criteria in the bylaw. So those criteria are actually set by the law, and you will find them in La Loi sur l'aménagement et l'urbanisme in the LAU, and our bylaw is essentially a derivation of la LAU. Ça te va? Oui, comme réponse?
Derivation, ça veut dire quoi? Derivation?
C'est un dérivé.
Oui.
A derivative?
A derivative.
Oui.
Okay. So I hope, Trevor, if you're listening, that makes any sense. I don't know them off by heart, but it's usually, you know, the derogation must be considered minor, it must create no issues of public safety, and it must not create a negative for the neighbors to not be able to enjoy their properties. I think those are sort of the three. There might be a fourth in there.
Le dernier, c'est que on ne peut pas se conformer à la réglementation de manière raisonnable.
Okay, and the fourth one, merci, j'avais oublié. And the fourth one is that it's impossible to otherwise conform to the bylaw that is in place. So the idea is that these are not used necessarily for spot zoning, but they're really to give a little more flexibility for very specific cases. Ça va? Right. So that's that. There was a question that I received by email that was with regards to, and I'm looking for it, the new tax that is coming into effect for cars that are registered in the Greater Montreal area. This is an amount of $59. There was already a tax charge to cars registered on the island of Montreal. I think the amount was maybe $43 somewhere. I have my notes on this. But essentially it is in an effort to distribute the cost of public transportation on the full territory of the Greater Montreal, there, especially because there's been a drop in use. So not as much money is coming into the ARTM, their pockets, to be able to give better service and to be able to continue. So they have a budget deficit that is quite significant, which will only get bigger as the REM also needs to be operated. And so therefore, rather than to put the burden solely on the municipalities and their taxpayers, they're looking to put it to distribute it also on car users, looking to encourage people to move towards public transportation. So that was one of the questions. All right, so good? Everybody's good? So that is it. We will then adjournment of the meeting, section 12. Moved by Peter Mate, seconded by Reed Thompson, that the meeting be adjourned at 10:19. And we need to vote. Are there any objections to this? No? You sure? Oh, yeah? Okay, it is good. It is carried unanimously.
We like it.
Thank you, everyone, for attending my very long meetings.